In my ICU room, my daughter placed her hand on my breathing tube and said, "Dad's not going to make it anyway." I lay there unable to move. My eyes wouldn't open, but I heard everything. She pulled the breathing tube out of my mouth. The machine beside me started beeping. I felt my lungs running out of air, but I was lucky enough to survive. And my daughter didn't know yet that when I woke up, she would pay the price for her cruelty. Hello everyone who made it here. Quick question, if you couldn't move but heard everything, what would you think? Comment below. Are you team fight back or team forgive? Note, this story contains fictionalized elements for storytelling impact, though the message may deeply resonate with you. The stroke had hit me 2 days ago, like a freight train I never saw coming. And now here I was, Kenneth Harper, 58 years old, a retired civil engineer who'd spent 35 years building bridges trapped inside my own body in the ICU at Riverside General Hospital in Sacramento. The ventilator tube pressed against my windpipe, forcing air into my lungs with a rhythmic hiss and click. Hiss, click, hiss, click. My brain registered every sound, every scent, the sharp antiseptic smell, mixed with something vaguely metallic. The faint hum of fluorescent lights overhead, the distant murmur of nurses at their station down the hall. I was paralyzed, but I wasn't gone. Not yet. And that's when I heard them. Footsteps, 2 sets, the soft squeak of rubber-soled shoes on polished linoleum. I knew those footsteps. One pair belonged to Elizabeth, my daughter, 30 years old, the little girl I'd raised alone after her mother passed. The other pair was heavier. Trevor, my son-in-law for 3 years now, a man I'd never quite warmed to but tolerated, because Elizabeth loved him. Can he hear us? Elizabeth's voice was hushed, tentative. I could picture her standing at the foot of my bed, her hands probably twisted together the way they always were when she was nervous. The doctor said he's unresponsive. Trevor's voice. Flat, matter of fact. He's not going to wake up, babe. I'm right here. I wanted to scream. I can hear every word, but my mouth wouldn't move. My vocal cords were as useless as my legs. Babe, we need to talk about your dad. Trevor's tone shifted, dropping lower. I heard him step closer, probably to the side of my bed. The doctors say his recovery is uncertain. The ICU bills alone are $8,000 a day. A day, Elizabeth. There was a pause. I strained every fiber of my being, focused on that pause, on what would come next. But he's my father, Trevor. Elizabeth's voice cracked, and I felt something twist inside my chest. At least she still cared. At least I know. Trevor interrupted, his voice taking on that smooth, persuasive quality I'd heard him use when trying to sell someone a car at the BMW dealership where he worked. I know he is. But think about it. He's 58, barely conscious. The medical bills will drain everything. If he doesn't make it. He let the sentence hang there, heavy and ominous. At least we won't be bankrupted by hospital costs. What my heart, if I could still feel it beating, would have stopped. Trevor, that's... Elizabeth started, but he cut her off again. The doctor said if the ventilator stops, he'd go peacefully. No suffering. He wouldn't even know. Silence. A thick, suffocating silence. I tried to move. Move, damn it. My fingers, my toes. Anything. But my body was a prison, and I was locked inside, listening to my daughter and her husband discuss giving up on me like I was a financial burden they needed to write off. I don't know. Elizabeth's voice was barely a whisper now. This feels wrong, Trevor. Really wrong. I know it's hard. His voice softened, and I heard the rustle of fabric. He was probably putting his arms around her. I know, babe. But sometimes love means letting go. He wouldn't want to be a vegetable, right? Hooked up to machines, draining your inheritance, putting you through this pain. My inheritance rage surged through me, hot and impotent. Is that what this is about? I'd worked my entire life, saved every penny. I had $85,000 in the bank, a house worth nearly $500,000, a life insurance policy. And now Trevor was standing over my hospital bed, convincing my daughter to pull the plug so they could cash in. But what if he can hear us? Elizabeth asked, and for a split second, hope flared in my chest. What if he knows? He can't, Trevor said firmly. Look at him. He's gone, Elizabeth. The man in that bed isn't your dad anymore. He's just a body. Keeping him alive like this, it's cruel. To him and to you. Another pause. Longer this time. I focused every ounce of energy I had left on my right hand. Move. Just one finger. Show them you're here. My index finger twitched, or did it? I couldn't even tell anymore. Elizabeth's breath hitched. She was crying. I don't want him to suffer. He won't, Trevor assured her, his voice dripping with false compassion. It'll be quick, peaceful, and then you can start healing. We can start moving forward. No. No. Think about it, Trevor continued. Your dad was a good man. He worked hard his whole life. He'd want you to be taken care of, right? He wouldn't want you drowning in debt because of him. Seconds ticked by. The machines beeped. The ventilator hissed. And then Elizabeth spoke, her voice so quiet I almost didn't hear it. You're right. My world tilted. Let's do it. No. The scream built in my throat, clawing its way up, but it had nowhere to go. My daughter, my little girl, the one I'd taught to ride a bike, the one I'd walked down the aisle 3 years ago, had just agreed to let me go. The footsteps retreated. The door clicked shut. And I was alone again, surrounded by the relentless beeping of machines, the hiss of the ventilator, and the crushing weight of betrayal. Darkness crept in at the edges of my consciousness, not from the stroke this time, but from the sheer, suffocating despair. This can't be how it ends. But the paralysis held firm. My voice stayed silent, and all I could do was lie there waiting, as the horror of what I'd just heard settled deep into my bones. Time had become meaningless in that room. The fluorescent lights never dimmed. The machines never stopped their rhythmic chorus. I'd lost track of whether it was day or night, whether hours or entire days had slipped past, while I floated in this liminal space between consciousness and oblivion. Then I felt it. A touch. Fingers brushing against the tube in my throat. My awareness sharpened instantly, adrenaline flooding through veins that shouldn't have been able to respond. The hand was small, delicate, trembling slightly as it wrapped around the ventilator tube. Elizabeth. No, please no. Quick before anyone comes. Trevor's whisper cut through the ambient noise like a blade. The pressure around my throat shifted. The tube moved just slightly at first, then more deliberately. My daughter's hand pulled, and suddenly the ventilator tube slid free. The air stopped. My lungs seized. It felt like drowning on dry land, like being buried alive under the weight of my own chest. I tried to gasp, tried to draw breath, but there was nothing, just a raw, burning void where oxygen should have been. My body screamed for air it couldn't reach. Panic exploded behind my sealed eyelids. Can't breathe, can't breathe, can't breathe. The machines erupted. Alarms shrieked, a high-pitched, relentless wail that pierced through everything. Red lights strobed across my closed eyelids. Somewhere above me, a monitor flatlined with a sustained, terrible tone. What's happening? A woman's voice, sharp and urgent. Footsteps pounded against linoleum. Through the roaring in my ears, I heard Nurse Johnson. I'd heard the staff call her name during shift changes burst through the door. "Oh my God! Get the crash cart now!" Another voice, deeper. "Dr. Harrison." I'd recognize that calm in crisis tone anywhere. He'd checked on me twice yesterday. Or was it 3 days ago, hands pressed down hard on my chest? Once. Twice. The compressions sent shockwaves of sensation through my paralyzed body, the first physical feeling I'd had in days, and it was agony. "We were just checking on him." Trevor's voice pitched higher than before. Defensive. "The tube must have come loose, we didn't touch anything." "Sir, step back." Nurse Johnson's command left no room for argument. "Elizabeth, you need to move away from the bed. Now." More hands on my face. Dr. Harrison's voice close to my ear. "Stay with me, Kenneth. We've got you." The ventilator tube slid back into place, the sensation foreign and invasive but desperately needed. Cool air rushed into my starving lungs. My heart found its rhythm again. Thump, thump, thump. The flatline tone cut off, replaced by the blessed sound of beeping that meant I was still here. Still fighting. "Oxygen saturation coming back up." Nurse Johnson reported, her voice steady despite the chaos. 72, 78, 85. "Good. Keep monitoring." "Doctor." Harrison's hands left my chest. I heard him turn, his voice dropping to a register I'd only heard him use once before, when he'd told another family their loved one wasn't going to make it. "Nurse Johnson, I want security reviewing the camera footage from this room. Everything from the last hour." "The camera," Elizabeth's voice cracked. "Why would you need? This wasn't an accident." Dr. Harrison's words were measured, careful but unmistakable. "Ventilator tubes don't just come loose. They're secured specifically to prevent that. Someone removed it." Silence. The kind of silence that speaks louder than any confession. "We should go," Trevor said abruptly. "Let the doctors work. Come on, Elizabeth." Their footsteps retreated, Trevor's quick and purposeful, Elizabeth's slower, hesitant. The door whooshed open, then sealed shut again. I lay there, chest heaving with machine-assisted breaths, my entire body trembling with the aftershock of what had just happened. Every nerve ending felt raw, exposed. The ventilator hissed its steady rhythm, but now each breath felt borrowed. Temporary. "Mr. Harper's vitals are stabilizing," Nurse Johnson said quietly. "But doctor, you saw what I saw, right?" "I did." A pause. She was holding the tube when I came in. Her hand was still on it. "Should I call the police? Let's review the footage first. But yes, document everything. Timestamps, observations, witness statements. If what I think happened actually happened." Dr. Harrison didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Footsteps approached my bed again. I felt his presence beside me, the gentle touch of his fingers checking my pulse at my wrist. "Kenneth," he said softly. "I don't know if you can hear me, but if you can, you're safe now. I'm not leaving this room until security gets here." Through the narrow slits my eyes could manage, I saw a sliver of the world beyond the glass door, the ICU hallway, the nurses' station. And there, partially visible through the doorway's window, stood Elizabeth. Her face had gone the color of old newspaper. Her hand pressed against the glass, as if she might fall without its support. Trevor stood behind her, his hand on her shoulder, mouth moving, probably feeding her some new lie, some new justification. But Elizabeth wasn't looking at him. She was staring directly at my room. At me. Our eyes met through that narrow gap, hers wide with terror. Mine barely open, but seeing everything with brutal clarity. She knew I'd survived. And I knew with a certainty that carved itself into my chest, like an epitaph, exactly what my daughter had tried to do. The smell hit me first: old wood lavender sachets, and 25 years of memories soaked into the walls of 1847 Birch Lane. Home. 7 days had passed since the incident. 7 days of relearning how to grip a spoon, how to shuffle 3 steps without collapsing. The doctors called my recovery remarkable, which I'd learned meant they'd expected far less. Now here I stood, if leaning on aluminum crutches counted as standing on my own front porch. "Careful on the threshold, Dad." Elizabeth's hand hovered near my elbow. "I moved your bedroom downstairs, the guest room. I thought the stairs might be too much." The guest room had been transformed. My own bed, the quilt Sandra and I bought 30 years ago, my nightstand, with prescription bottles arranged like soldiers. Fresh yellow daisies in a mason jar on the dresser. "I set up your medications by time of day," Elizabeth explained, pointing to a handwritten chart on the wall. "And I made chicken noodle soup your favorite." The effort was evident. My chest tightened. Maybe I'd been wrong about the ICU. Maybe it really had been an accident. "She's your daughter. She wouldn't. Ken, you gave us such a scare." Trevor appeared in the doorway, smile not quite reaching his eyes. "We're just glad you're home, buddy." Buddy. He'd never called me that before. "Thank you." I managed words slurred from the stroke's effect on my face. "Appreciate this." Over the next few days, I watched them. Elizabeth checked on me every hour, brought meals, helped me to the bathroom. Trevor hovered at room edges, phone always in hand, attention always elsewhere. And I noticed how Trevor's jaw clenched when Elizabeth fussed over my pillows, how his eyes tracked her movements with something like impatience. On the 3rd day, Elizabeth sat on my bed. "Dad, the doctors said you need complete rest. I'm going to handle everything: bills, groceries, medications. You just focus on getting better." It made sense. I could barely reach the kitchen without needing a nap. "That's good," I said. "Thank you, sweetheart." "Oh, and Dad, your phone." She gestured to my nightstand. "All those notifications are probably stressing you out. Let me hold on to it until you're stronger. I'll check your messages. Dr. Harrison said minimizing stimulation helps brain healing." My phone. My connection to Richard, to David, to everything outside these walls. My stomach knotted. "I don't know if it's temporary, just a few weeks." She reached for it. "Remember what the doctor said?" Had Dr. Harrison said that I couldn't recall? Okay. If the doctor said, he did. Promise. She tucked it into her purse with a decisive zip. One less thing to worry about. After she left, I lay staring at the ceiling. The house settled with familiar creaks. Then I heard their voices through the old heating vents. Sandra used to joke we'd never keep secrets because of those vents. "The bank account." Trevor's voice muffled but clear. "Needs his signature on the authorization." "I know, but he's already suspicious." Elizabeth, defensive. "Did you see how he looked at me when I took his phone?" Then we move faster. The bills are piling up. His voice dropped too low. "Can't wait much longer. I'm doing my best. This is my father, Trevor." "I know, babe, but we talked about this. It's what needs to happen." My pulse pounded. Bank account, authorization, his signature. No, the medications were making me paranoid, creating connections that weren't there. Elizabeth had spent days setting up this room, arranging everything I needed. But she did try something in the ICU. You heard them. You felt her hand. I squeezed my eyes shut. Maybe the stroke damaged my brain, made me confused, made me suspect the one person actually caring for me. A knock startled me. Elizabeth stood backlit in the doorway, smile bright and warm. "Dad, I'm heading to the pharmacy for your new prescriptions. Dr. Harrison called in something for muscle spasms, and I'm grabbing medical supplies, shower chair grip bars. Anything else you need? She looked so earnest. So much like the little girl who used to bring me dandelions, convinced they were the most beautiful flowers in the world. No, I said, voice rough. That's everything. Thank you, honey. I'll be back soon. She blew me a kiss, something she hadn't done since she was 12. I heard the car start, heard it fade into distance, and I lay there in the dimness, trying to convince myself I could still trust my own daughter. 3 hours later, I heard the car pull into the driveway. The engine cut off, followed by the familiar beep of the alarm system being set. Elizabeth's footsteps crossed the porch, and the front door swung open. Dad, I'm back. Her voice carried that bright, cheerful tone from earlier. Got your prescriptions and some supplies. I'd managed to prop myself up in the recliner by then, the effort leaving me winded. Through the doorway between the guest room and the living room, I watched her set down several small white pharmacy bags on the coffee table. And then I saw it. A brown handbag, leather, expensive-looking, with that distinctive interlocking LV pattern I recognized even from a distance. It sat on the side table near the lamp, the afternoon light catching the gold hardware. Elizabeth disappeared into the kitchen, humming something under her breath. The faucet ran, cabinet doors opened and closed. Elizabeth. My voice came out weaker than I'd intended. Could you come here a minute? She appeared in the doorway, drying her hands on a dish towel. What's up, Dad? You need your pills. I gestured toward the handbag. That bag, is that new? Her eyes flicked to it, then back to me. Not even a pause. Oh, that old thing. She laughed, picking it up and turning it over in her hands like it was nothing. It was Mom's. I found it up in the attic last week while I was looking for your winter blankets. Mom's. I stared at the bag, trying to remember. Sandra had been practical about accessories, a Target shopper, a clearance rack hunter. She'd owned exactly 2 nice purses in our entire marriage, a black one for weddings and funerals, and a beige one for every day. Both had been from Macy's, bought on sale. I don't remember your mother having a Louis Vuitton, I said slowly. Really, I'm sure it was hers. Elizabeth's smile didn't waver. Maybe she bought it before you two met, or maybe Aunt Charlotte gave it to her. I don't know, Dad. It was just up there with her old stuff. She set it back down and returned to the kitchen before I could respond. The explanation was smooth ready, like she'd been expecting the question. But something felt wrong. The way she'd touched it, not like a cherished memory of her mother, but like an expensive new purchase she was still getting used to carrying. 2 days passed. Elizabeth continued her attentive routine: breakfast at 8, lunch at noon, checking my vitals, helping me to the bathroom. Trevor came and went, always with that same forced friendliness, calling me buddy and champ, like we were old pals. On the 3rd day, I noticed the kitchen trash was full. Elizabeth had gone to work, or said she had, and Trevor was in the garage doing something with his car. I could hear the pneumatic hiss of the air compressor. Using my crutches, I made my way slowly to the kitchen. Each step required focus: plant the crutch, swing the leg, don't put too much weight on the weak ankle. By the time I reached the trash can, sweat beaded on my forehead. I tied up the bag, preparing to drag it to the bin outside, when something caught my eye through the translucent plastic. A receipt. Cream-colored paper with elegant typography. My hands shook as I untied the bag and pulled it out. Louis Vuitton Boutique, Sacramento Town Center, item never full, monogram, amount $700, 200, date. 3 days ago, the day Elizabeth went to the pharmacy, payment debit card, ending in 47387, $7,200. The numbers swam in front of my eyes. I had to read them 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. The paper crumpled in my grip as my hand clenched involuntarily. That was my debit card, ending in 4738. The one that accessed the account David had set up for me 2 years ago. The one where my retirement deposits went, where David transferred $3,200 every month to help cover my expenses after Sandra passed. The account that had $85,000 in it last time I checked. I stuffed the receipt into my pocket and hobbled back to the guest room as fast as my crutches would carry me. The trash bag remained on the kitchen floor, forgotten. In my room, I pulled open the nightstand drawer where I kept my wallet. Hands trembling, I flipped it open. My debit card was gone. The slot where it should have been sat empty. My credit card was still there, the one I barely used, kept only for emergencies. But the debit card, the one with full access to my retirement account, had vanished. When had she taken it? Last week, when she'd organized my nightstand yesterday. When she'd brought me lunch, I couldn't remember the last time I'd actually looked for it. My mind raced back to 2 weeks before the stroke. Elizabeth had come over for dinner, mentioned she wanted to help out more. "Dad, you're living alone now. What if something happens and you can't pay your bills? Let me be an authorized user on your account. Just in case. I won't touch it unless there's an emergency." I'd thought it made sense. Practical. What could go wrong? I pulled out the receipt again, staring at the date and amount. $7,200. On medical supplies and prescriptions. That's what she'd told me. I shoved the receipt into the back of my sock drawer beneath the pairs I never wore anymore, and lowered myself onto the bed. My heart hammered against my ribs, not from the exertion of moving around, but from the cold realization spreading through my chest. She'd lied. About the bag. About where she'd been. About what she'd spent. What else had she lied about? That evening, Elizabeth made roasted chicken, the kind I used to love, with rosemary and lemon. She set it on a tray and brought it to my room with a glass of water and my evening pills. "There you go, Dad. Your favorite." She adjusted my pillows, pulled the blanket higher. "How are you feeling? You look tired." "I'm okay," I managed. Trevor appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame. "How's the patient doing?" "You're looking better every day, Ken. Really bouncing back." His smile was wide teeth white against his tan. Too wide. Too practiced. "Thanks," I said, picking up the fork even though I had no appetite. They stood there for a moment, watching me like I was a specimen under glass. Then Elizabeth kissed my forehead, something she hadn't done since she was a teenager, and they left, pulling the door mostly closed behind them. I set down the fork and stared at the chicken congealing on the plate. $7,200. She lied to my face and smiled while doing it. I needed to see my bank account, needed to know how much damage had already been done. But my phone was gone, taken under the guise of helping me rest. My laptop was upstairs in my old office, might as well be on the moon for all the good it did me now. Tomorrow, I decided. Tomorrow, when they both left, I'd find a way to get upstairs. I'd check the account. And then I'd know for certain whether my daughter was just careless with money or if something much worse was happening. I lay back against the pillows, the receipt burning a hole in my sock drawer across the room. $7,200. And that smile when she lied. Morning light filtered through the guest room curtains when I heard the garage door grind open. Trevor's BMW. The engine had a distinctive rumble I'd learned to recognize. Then Elizabeth's voice in the hallway. "I'll be back by 2. Call me if you need anything." The front door closed. Silence settled over the house. I waited 5 minutes to be sure, counting the seconds in my head. Then I reached for my crutches. The laptop. I'd kept it in the dining room hutch for years. Sandra used to check recipes on it while cooking. If I could just get there, access my bank account, see the full picture of what was happening to my money. Each step felt like a marathon. Guest room to hallway. Hallway to living room. Living room to dining room. My armpits ached from the crutch pressure. Sweat dampened my shirt collar. The hutch door stuck it always had, but I managed to work it open. The laptop sat where I'd left it months ago, a thin layer of dust on its cover. I carried it to the dining table, lowered myself into a chair, and waited for it to boot up. The screen glowed to life. I navigated to Wells Fargo's website, clicked the login button. Username kharper1847. Password Sandra2019. Invalid password. My stomach dropped. I tried again, carefully typing each character. Invalid password. Someone had changed it. But who would Elizabeth? Of course, she had authorized user access. She could have called the bank, claimed she was helping me reset everything. My hands hovered over the keyboard. Then I remembered the password reset option. If my email was still accessible, I could get back in. I opened Gmail, held my breath. Typed my email password, one I'd used for a decade, one Elizabeth wouldn't know. It worked. Within minutes, I had the reset link, a new temporary password, access to my account. The dashboard loaded. Available balance, $82,800. I stared at the number. Last month, before the stroke, before any of this, the balance had been around $85,000. David's regular transfers, my retirement deposits, careful management. Now $2,200 had vanished. Maybe it's not that bad. Maybe she really did need things, and I clicked on transaction history. The list unfurled across the screen, each line a small detonation in my chest. Louis Vuitton Boutique, $700, $200, Nordstrom, Sacramento, $1,500, BMW of Sacramento, $3,300, $12,000. In 3 weeks. My vision blurred. I scrolled further, looking for anything that made sense. Grocery stores, pharmacies, actual medical supplies, nothing. Just luxury stores, department stores, car dealerships. But maybe she needed clothes for work. Maybe the BMW charge was a repair on Trevor's car. Maybe there's an explanation. The front door burst open. Dad, I jerked, nearly knocking the laptop off the table. Elizabeth stood in the doorway, purse still on her shoulder, eyes wide. What are you doing? You're supposed to be resting. She rushed toward me, her gaze locking onto the laptop screen. Are you on the computer, Dad? You know you're not supposed to strain yourself. I was checking the bank account, I said, voice steadier than I felt. Elizabeth, I found the receipt for the Louis Vuitton. And I see the charges here, charges. She moved closer, leaning over to look at the screen. Her expression shifted confusion to understanding, to something that looked almost like sympathy. Oh, Dad. She pulled out the chair next to me and sat, taking my hand in hers. Dad, that bag was Mom's. I told you. I had it repaired. That's why there's a receipt. Her thumb rubbed circles on the back of my hand. The stroke. Dr. Harrison warned us this might happen. Memory issues, confusion. Repaired for $7,200. It was extensive restoration. Leatherwork, hardware, replacement cleaning. Those bags are investment pieces, Dad. You remember how much Mom treasured it? I pulled my hand away. Your mother never had a Louis Vuitton bag. She shopped at Target. Elizabeth's jaw tightened just for a second. Then the sympathetic expression returned. Dad, you're confused. The stroke affected your memory. That's what the doctors said. You're remembering things wrong. I'm not confused about $12,000 in 3 weeks. 12. She glanced at the screen again. Dad, those aren't all my purchases. Some of those are yours, and some are for things you needed: medical supplies, home modifications. The Nordstrom charge that was for your adaptive clothing. The elastic waistbands, the slip-on shoes. Remember? Did I remember that? I tried to think back. Had she mentioned buying me clothes, the fog of the past few weeks made everything uncertain. The garage door opened again. Footsteps. Trevor appeared in the dining room doorway. Everything okay? His eyes moved from Elizabeth to me to the laptop. Dad was checking the bank account, Elizabeth said, standing. He's worried about the charges. I'm trying to explain, but he's confused. Trevor stepped forward, placed a hand on Elizabeth's shoulder. His expression radiated concern, but his eyes were flat. Ken, we're worried about you too. This kind of stress isn't good for your recovery. Maybe you should let Elizabeth handle the finances for now. Just until you're thinking more clearly. I'm thinking clearly, I said. Are you? Trevor's voice was gentle, almost pitying. Because from where I'm standing, you're accusing your daughter, the person who's taken care of you around the clock, of stealing from you. Does that sound like clear thinking? The words hit like a physical blow. Was I accusing her? Was I being paranoid? The medications, the stroke, the trauma, maybe they had affected my judgment more than I realized. I just want to understand, I said quietly. I know. Elizabeth's hand touched my shoulder. And I'll go through every single charge with you when you're feeling better. But right now, you need rest. This kind of stress could trigger another stroke, Dad. Please. She reached past me and closed the laptop. Let me make you some lunch. You haven't eaten yet, have you? I shook my head, suddenly exhausted. The trip to the dining room, the confrontation, the doubt creeping through my thoughts, it had drained everything. Trevor helped me back to the guest room while Elizabeth busied herself in the kitchen. He settled me into bed with the kind of practiced ease that felt wrong somehow. Too smooth, too rehearsed. Rest up, Ken. You've had a rough morning. After they left, I lay staring at the ceiling. The receipt was still hidden in my sock drawer. The bank statement showed $12,000 in unexplained charges. But Elizabeth's words echoed. You're confused. Memory issues. Thinking wrong. Was I the stroke had happened? The medications were real. Brain damage could cause paranoia, couldn't it? But $12,000. Louis Vuitton. Nordstrom. BMW. My daughter wouldn't steal from me. She's taking care of me. I'm the problem. I'm confused. I closed my eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. 3 days after the laptop incident, Elizabeth appeared in my doorway with that bright smile I'd started to recognize as a warning sign. Dad, Trevor, and I are going to Hawaii for 5 days. We leave tomorrow morning. I blinked, certain I'd misheard. Hawaii. I know the timing isn't ideal, but Trevor booked this months ago for our anniversary. Non-refundable. She squeezed my hand. You'll be fine. I've meal prepped everything, soups, casseroles, all labeled. Your medications are organized by day. But I can barely walk. What if something happens? Nothing's going to happen. You're improving every day. That practiced reassurance again. Besides, we deserve a break after everything, don't we? Trevor appeared behind her. We've been under a lot of stress, Ken. Taking care of you, not that we mind. But everyone needs a reset. The way he said, taking care of you, made it sound like a burden. The next morning, suitcase wheels rolled across hardwood, hushed voices, the front door closing, car engine fading, then silence. Complete, suffocating silence. By noon, I'd heated lukewarm soup, chicken, and rice and taken my medications from the Monday organizer Elizabeth left. The house felt cavernous. Every sound echoed back, crutch clunks, chair scrapes, my own breathing. Day 2, I maintained the routine. Breakfast, pills, shuffle to the recliner, stare at the TV, back to bed. By evening, something felt wrong. My head swam when I stood. The room tilted, walls sliding sideways. Day 3 started worse. When I tried getting out of bed, the floor lurched beneath me. I made it to the bathroom, gripped the sink, stared at my gaunt reflection. Just splash water on your face, my leg gave out. Ceiling, walls, floor rushing up. My shoulder hit tile first, then my hip. Pain exploded through my body. I lay there, cheek pressed against cold bathroom floor, unable to move. Get up. Come on. But my arms wouldn't cooperate. My stroke-weakened muscles had nothing left. 20 minutes I lay on that floor, cold seeping into my bones, trying to gather strength. Eventually, inch by painful inch, I dragged myself out using my elbows. Back on the bed, I lay shaking. No phone. No way to reach anyone. This is how people are found. Days later. Alone. Then I remembered the old tablet Sandra used for book club shoved in the closet. If the battery still held charge, if it could connect to Wi-Fi. 30 minutes to cross the room and dig through the closet. 10 more to find the charging cable. When I plugged it in and held the power button, the screen flickered. 13% battery. Enough. I opened email with trembling hands. Richard's address was saved: my older brother, 62, living 25 minutes away in East Sacramento. Rich, I need help. Elizabeth and Trevor went to Hawaii. Left me alone. I fell today, couldn't get up for almost half an hour. Please call, don't tell Elizabeth. I hit send and clutched the tablet to my chest. The video call came next morning. Richard's face filled the screen, weathered, concerned, same blue eyes I saw in mirrors. Ken, Jesus, what happened to you? Just seeing him cracked something open in my chest. I fell. Yesterday. You look like hell. Where are Elizabeth and Trevor? Hawaii anniversary trip. Silence. Richard's jaw tightened. They left you alone 3 weeks after your stroke. Elizabeth said I'd be fine. You can barely stand. What if you'd hit your head? He ran a hand over his face. I'm coming over. Tomorrow. Charlotte and I will be there when they get back. After we hung up, I felt something I hadn't in weeks: hope. Day 5, late afternoon. The front door burst open with laughter. God, I needed that. 5 days of no responsibilities. Best anniversary yet, babe. Trevor's footsteps crossed the entryway. I was in the recliner, had made it there an hour ago, hadn't moved since. Dad, we're home. Elizabeth breathed in skin, golden brown hair, sun-lightened. She wore flowing white resort wear. Did you miss us? Behind her, Trevor dragged in a new suitcase. Louis Vuitton, matching the handbag. The monogram gleamed. My eyes tracked from suitcase to Elizabeth's designer sunglasses to Trevor's new watch, chunky, expensive. How was your trip? Amazing. The resort was incredible, right on Waikiki. We went snorkeling, took a helicopter tour, had the best poke bowl. She smiled, oblivious. How were you? Everything okay? I fell in the bathroom. Couldn't get up for 20 minutes. Her smile flickered. Oh, but you're okay now, right? You got up eventually. Eventually. Trevor set down luggage. Accidents happen, Ken. Important thing is, you're fine. Fine. As if being trapped on a cold floor was a minor inconvenience. Elizabeth moved to the kitchen. I'm starving. Trevor brought back amazing Kona coffee. You'll love it, Dad. They disappeared, voices carrying back restaurants, excursions, island beauty. Not a word about the man they'd left behind. I sat staring at that Louis Vuitton suitcase, understanding with terrible clarity they'd spent my money celebrating while I lay helpless on a bathroom floor. Tomorrow, Richard would come. Tomorrow, everything would be different. Tonight, I just had to make it through. 2 days crawled by after their return. 2 days of watching Elizabeth move through the house with that post-vacation glow of listening to Trevor's stories about sunset catamaran rides. 2 days of biting my tongue while they unpacked souvenirs, macadamia nuts, tropical print shirts, a carved wooden tiki that now sat on the mantel like a monument to my money. On the third morning, I heard Trevor's BMW rumble out of the garage at 7:30. Elizabeth left 20 minutes later, calling out that she had back-to-back salon appointments until 3. The moment her car disappeared down Birch Lane, I was moving. The laptop. The dining room table. My hands shook so badly I could barely type the password I'd reset last time. The Wells Fargo homepage loaded with agonizing slowness. I clicked through to my account. Available balance, $17,000. The number sat there on the screen, stark and terrible. 17,000. From 85,000 just 2 months ago. $68,000 vanished like smoke. My vision blurred. I gripped the table edge, willing myself not to pass out, not to have another stroke right here, not when I was so close to seeing the full truth. Transaction history. 2 months. Show all, the list unfurled, page after page of charges, each one, a small violence, Hawaiian Airlines round trip. 2 passengers, $2,400, Hilton Hawaiian Village, 5 nights, $7,400, Louis Vuitton Boutique. Sacramento, $720, Nordstrom Women's Apparel, $1,500, Gucci, Sacramento Arden Fair, $2,800, Prada Online Purchase, $2,000, BMW of Sacramento Used Vehicle Down Payment. $18,000, transfer to Trevor Caldwell. Account XXXXXX7829 $5,000, transfer to Trevor Caldwell. Account XXXXXX7829 $4,500, transfer to Trevor Caldwell. Account XXXXXX7829 $4,500, Thunder Valley Casino Resort $6,200, Red Hawk Casino $3,100, Cache Creek Casino $2,300. Restaurants, various $2,700. 00. I scrolled through it all my breakfast, threatening to come back up. The Hawaii trip alone had cost nearly 10,000 first-class flights, oceanfront suite excursions, spa treatments, dinners at restaurants I couldn't pronounce. While I'd been lying on a bathroom floor unable to move, they'd been sipping Mai Tais and getting couples massages. The BMW charge made my stomach turn. $18,000 as a down payment. Had Trevor bought himself a second car, or was this a gift for Elizabeth? But the casino charges, those made everything click into place. $11,000 across 3 different casinos. Trevor had a gambling problem. That's what this was really about. Not just greed, not just opportunism, but feeding an addiction with my retirement savings. And those transfers to his account, $14,000 total. Money I'd never see again, probably already gambled away or spent on God knows what. I thought about David, my son in Seattle, faithfully depositing $3,200 every month into this account, because he wanted to make sure his old man could live comfortably after Mom passed. David, who worked 60-hour weeks running his tech company, who called every Sunday to check on me, who had no idea his sister was bleeding me dry. Without those deposits, I'd already be broke, completely destitute, living in my own house with $0 to my name. My hands found the printer, an old HP that wheezed and groaned but still worked. I clicked print. All transactions, every single page. The printer spat out 15 pages of evidence. 15 pages of theft, of betrayal of my daughter, systematically dismantling everything I'd worked for. I folded them carefully, my hands steadier now that I had proof. This wasn't confusion, wasn't stroke-induced paranoia. Wasn't memory problems. This was real. I tucked the pages under my mattress deep beneath the fitted sheet, where Elizabeth wouldn't find them when she helpfully made my bed. Then I sat on the edge of that bed and thought about the rest of it. The life insurance policy, $360,000, that still listed Elizabeth as the primary beneficiary. The house on Birch Lane, 25 years of mortgage payments, now worth $495,000 on the current market. If I passed, Elizabeth would inherit everything, nearly $1 million. And after what I'd just seen, after watching $68,000 disappear in 2 months, how long would it take her to go through the rest, a year less, or would she speed up the timeline? Make sure I had another stroke, a worse one. Maybe help it along somehow. The thought paralyzed me. My own daughter. The little girl I'd taught to ride a bike, whose scraped knees I'd bandaged, whose college tuition I'd paid, whose wedding I'd hosted in our backyard. Could she really be thinking about number one? I couldn't let myself finish that thought. Not yet. Not until I had more proof, more certainty. But I needed help. Needed someone who could think clearly, who wasn't damaged and weak and dependent. I needed Richard. The landline sat on my nightstand. Elizabeth had left it, probably thinking I couldn't cause much trouble with a phone that couldn't send texts or access the internet. I reached for it, started dialing Richard's number from memory. 7 digits in, I heard it. The garage door grinding open. My heart slammed into my throat. I checked the clock on the nightstand, 11:15 a.m. Elizabeth wasn't supposed to be back until 3. Keys in the door, footsteps in the kitchen. I jabbed the power button on the laptop, watching the screen go black with agonizing slowness, shoved it under my pillow. Dropped back onto the bed, pulled the blanket up, closed my eyes. My pulse hammered so hard, I was certain she'd hear it from the doorway. "Dad." Her voice bright and curious. "You awake?" I kept my breathing slow, regular. Tried to make my face slack with sleep. Footsteps approached, stopped at my doorway. "Dad." I didn't move, didn't twitch. Just lay there playing possum, praying she couldn't see the laptop's outline under my pillow. Couldn't smell the warm electronics. Couldn't sense the truth hanging in the air like smoke. After what felt like an hour but was probably 30 seconds, she moved away. Her footsteps receded toward the kitchen. Water running. Cabinet opening. I lay frozen, the 15 pages of bank statements pressing into my back through the mattress, and wondered how much longer I could survive in this house. The next morning, I waited by the guest room window, watching for their car to pull out. Elizabeth had mentioned Costco, a big shopping trip. Trevor needed parts for his BMW. They'd be gone at least an hour. The moment the garage door closed, I grabbed the landline. My fingers trembled as I dialed. Richard answered on the second ring. "Ken." "Rich, I need you to come over. Right now. Don't call first, just come. And don't tell Elizabeth." 3 heartbeats of silence. Then we're on our way. 25 minutes later, Richard's silver Ford F-150 pulled into the driveway. He got out first, tall, broad-shouldered, moving with the decisive energy of a 40-year construction supervisor. Charlotte emerged from the passenger side, her nurse's bag slung over her shoulder, like she'd never really retired. I met them at the door, still in pajamas, leaning on crutches. Charlotte's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh, Kenny." She hadn't called me that since we were kids. She pulled me into a hug, careful of my weak side, mindful of my balance. When was the last time someone had hugged me without an agenda? "What's going on?" Richard's voice was gentle but urgent. "Come inside. I need to show you something." At the dining room table, I'd laid out 15 pages of bank statements, like evidence at a crime scene. 2 months ago, I had $85,000 in this account. My finger traced down the first page. Now I have 17,000. 68,000 gone. Richard picked up the first page, scanning transactions. His jaw tightened with each line. Charlotte leaned over his shoulder, her expression shifting from concern to horror. Hawaiian Airlines. Hilton Hawaiian Village. 7,400 for 5 nights. Richard looked up. They went to Hawaii. While I was home alone, 3 weeks after my stroke, I fell in the bathroom, couldn't get up for almost half an hour. Charlotte's hand gripped my shoulder. They left you alone, Ken. Anything could have happened. It gets worse. I flipped to the second page. Casinos, 3 different ones. 11,000 total. Trevor's gambling with my retirement. Richard continued reading, face darkening. Transfer to Trevor Caldwell's account. 5,000. Another 4,500. Another 4,500. He set the papers down carefully. That's theft, Ken. That's not even the worst part. I took a breath. In the ICU right after my stroke, I heard them. I was paralyzed on a ventilator, but I could hear. Trevor convinced Elizabeth to unplug my breathing tube, said medical bills would bankrupt them, that I'd slip away peacefully. The room went silent. What? Richard stared like I'd spoken another language. She did it. Elizabeth pulled the tube out. I felt it. Couldn't breathe. The alarms went off. Dr. Harrison came running. My hands clenched. They tried to make it look like an accident. Charlotte sank into a chair, face pale. Richard stood abruptly, paced to the window, came back. Ken, that's not just financial abuse, that's... He stopped himself. That's a serious crime. I know. But every time I confront Elizabeth about the money, she tells me I'm confused, that the stroke damaged my memory. I pulled out the crumpled Louis Vuitton receipt. But I'm not confused. This is real. Richard studied the receipt, handed it back. What do you need from us? Proof. Something solid Elizabeth can't explain away. Charlotte reached across the table, took my hand. You have it. Whatever you need. Richard was already thinking. Hidden cameras. Put them up record for a week. Catch Elizabeth and Trevor talking when they think you can't hear. Can you do that? I know a guy who installs security systems. Owes me a favor. Richard checked his watch. How long until they're back? Hour, maybe more. That's enough time. 40 minutes later, we had 2 cameras hidden in plain sight. One inside the antique wall clock in the living room, the one Sandra's mother had given us, the one Elizabeth walked past without seeing. The other nestled behind a picture frame in the hallway lens, disguised in the matting. Richard showed me the app on his phone. Motion activated, record to the cloud. You, me, and Charlotte all have access. Charlotte had made me lunch while Richard worked real food, not reheated casseroles. Chicken salad on toasted sourdough, fresh fruit, iced tea. I'd eaten half before realizing I was actually hungry for the first time in weeks. Charlotte's coming by every other day, Richard said, sitting across from me. Check on you, bring groceries, make sure you're eating. We'll say she's helping with your recovery. Elizabeth can't object to that. What if she does? Then that tells us something too. Richard's hand gripped my shoulder, solid and steady. Ken, we're family. Blood, and family doesn't abandon each other when things get hard. We should have been here from the beginning. You didn't know. We should have. He glanced at Charlotte, who nodded. But we're here now. Richard stayed through the afternoon. Charlotte made dinner, real dinner lasagna from scratch, the kind Sandra used to make on Sundays. We ate at the dining room table, the 3 of us, and for a few hours I almost forgot about the cameras, watching the bank statements, hidden under my mattress, the daughter who'd become a stranger. When Elizabeth and Trevor's car pulled into the garage at 6:30, Charlotte was washing dishes, and Richard was helping me back to the guest room, playing the role of concerned brother, checking on his recovering sibling. Uncle Rich, Aunt Charlotte. Elizabeth's surprise seemed genuine. I didn't know you were coming by. Just checking on your dad, Richard said easily. Making sure he's getting proper care. Something flickered across Elizabeth's face, too quick to read, then her smile returned. Of course. That's so sweet of you. After Elizabeth retreated to her bedroom and Trevor disappeared into the garage, Richard settled into the recliner in the living room. Charlotte sat on the sofa knitting something blue and soft. We're not leaving yet, Richard said quietly when I questioned him. Not until we make that call. That evening, after Elizabeth and Trevor had retreated to their bedroom, Richard pulled out his phone and set it on the dining room table. Time to call David. My stomach knotted. I'd been dreading this moment, telling my son that his sister, the person he'd grown up protecting, was stealing from me. Possibly worse. Richard dialed. The screen showed calling David Harper. 3 rings, then David's face filled the screen. He was in his downtown Seattle office. I could see the city skyline through the window behind him, still bright at 6 p.m. Pacific time. He wore a charcoal suit, no tie, the top button of his white shirt undone. Even through the video, he looked tired. Uncle Rich, Dad. David's brow furrowed immediately. What's wrong? Is everything okay? Dave, we need to talk about your father. Richard's voice was steady, but I heard the anger underneath. It's serious. David's expression shifted concern to alarm. Then is it another stroke, Dad? Are you... I'm okay, I managed. Physically, I mean. But there's something you need to know. For the next 20 minutes, I told him everything. The conversation in the ICU, Elizabeth's hand on the ventilator tube. The bank account, $85,000, reduced to $17,000. Hawaii, while I lay alone on a bathroom floor. The casinos, the luxury purchases, the transfers to Trevor's account. David's face went through a progression I'll never forget. Confusion, disbelief, anger. Then something cold and calculating I'd only seen once before, when a business partner tried to cheat him out of a patent. Wait, he held up a hand. Back up. Elizabeth unplugged your breathing tube in the ICU. I heard them planning it. Then she did it. Dr. Harrison saved me. And you didn't tell me. His voice cracked. Dad, she tried to. You could have... I know. I thought maybe I'd misunderstood, that the stroke had confused me. Elizabeth kept telling me my memory was damaged, that I was paranoid. I gestured to the bank statements Richard had stacked beside me. But the money doesn't lie. David leaned closer to his screen. Show me. Richard held up the first page to the camera. David's eyes scanned it, his jaw tightening with each line. 68,000 in 2 months. David's voice was flat now, emotionless. The way he got when he was furious, but trying to control it. Dad, I've been transferring $3,200 a month into that account for 2 years. That means with your retirement deposits, you should have at least $150,000. Probably more. The number hit me like a physical blow. 150,000. I'd been so focused on the 85, I remembered from before the stroke I hadn't calculated what should have been there with David's help. They've stolen over $100,000. David set his phone down, paced out of frame for a moment. When he came back, his expression was granite. Dad, this isn't just about the money, is it? No. My throat tightened. I have life insurance. $360,000. Elizabeth's still the beneficiary, and the house is worth almost $500,000. So if something happens to you... David didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Richard spoke up. We've installed hidden cameras, 2 of them, They're recording now. If Elizabeth and Trevor say anything incriminating, we'll have it. Good. That's good. David was thinking now I could see it, the same focused intensity he brought to business deals. Okay, here's what we do. Dad, can you get away from the house, go stay with Uncle Rich and Aunt Charlotte? I already suggested that, Richard said. But if Ken leaves, Elizabeth might get suspicious, might destroy evidence or stop talking around the cameras. Right. Okay. David rubbed his face. Then I'm coming down. First flight out tomorrow morning. I'll work remotely from Sacramento for a few weeks. Dave, you don't have to. Yes, I do. She's my sister, but you're my father. His voice was steel. And if what you're telling me is true, and I believe it is, then Elizabeth is a threat. To you, to your safety, to everything you've worked for. He pulled up something on his computer, typed rapidly. Alaska Airlines 6:15 a.m. departure lands at Sacramento International at 8:40. I'll rent a car, be at Uncle Rich's house by 9:30. What about your company? I asked. Your meetings. I own the company, Dad. Meetings can wait. You can't. Richard nodded approval. When you get here, we'll strategize. But keep this quiet, don't tell Elizabeth you're coming. We need the element of surprise. Understood. David leaned back in his chair, and for a moment he looked so much like me at 36, same determined set to his jaw, same fierce protectiveness. Has anyone contacted a lawyer yet? Not yet, Richard said. I wanted to wait until we had camera footage, something concrete. Good instinct, but we'll need one soon. Elder law specialist, someone who handles financial abuse cases. David made a note. I'll research firms tonight, have a list ready by morning. We talked for another 20 minutes, mapping out a timeline. Week 1, gather camera footage, document everything. Week 2, consult with a lawyer, understand our legal options. Week 3, decide whether to involve police file for restraining orders, whatever the attorney advised. Dad, David said finally, I need you to promise me something. What? Stay safe. Don't confront Elizabeth. Don't tip her off that you know the full extent of what she's done. Play along, act confused if you need to just... His voice caught. Just stay alive until I get there. The raw fear in his voice made my eyes burn. I promise. I love you, Dad. I'm so sorry this is happening, but we're going to fix it. Together. After the call ended, I sat staring at the blank screen. My hands were shaking. You okay? Richard asked quietly. I wasn't sure. Relief, rage, grief, they all churned together until I couldn't separate one from another. My daughter had stolen from me, had tried to end my life, and now my son was flying across 3 states to protect me from her. I raised them both, I said, voice breaking. Same house, same values. How did they turn out so different? Richard's hand gripped my shoulder. That's not on you, Ken. Elizabeth made her choices. Trevor influenced her, sure, but she made the decision to take that money, to pull that tube. Those were her choices. A sound escaped me, half sob, half laugh. I keep thinking about when she was 7. She fell off her bike, scraped her knee so badly she needed stitches. She cried the whole way to urgent care, holding on to me like I was the only safe thing in the world. I wiped my eyes. Where did that little girl go? I don't know. But the important thing is David's on his way. Charlotte and I are here. You're not fighting this alone anymore. Elizabeth's voice drifted from the bedroom, high, lilting, laughing at something Trevor said. The sound made my skin crawl. In the living room, the antique clock ticked steadily, its hidden camera watching, waiting. Tomorrow, David would arrive. Tomorrow, we'd start building a real case. Tonight, I just had to make it through without my daughter realizing that her entire world was about to collapse around her. I thought about that little girl with the scraped knee crying in my arms, and I thought about the woman who'd wrapped her fingers around my breathing tube and pulled. They weren't the same person anymore. Maybe they never had been. I barely slept that night. Kept replaying David's voice on the video call I'm coming down. First flight out. By 6 a.m. I was dressed sitting in Richard's guest room staring at my phone. At 8:50, David texted landed. Heading to the house now. Be there in 20. Richard drove me back to Birch Lane. We pulled up just as David's rental, a gray Toyota Camry, parked in the driveway. My son got out, rumpled in jeans and a wrinkled button-down carry-on slung over his shoulder. He'd probably worked on the plane, hadn't slept. He saw me and his face crumpled for just a second before he composed himself. Dad. He pulled me into a careful hug. God, I've missed you. Missed you too, son. The front door opened. Elizabeth stood there, coffee mug in hand, surprise flickering across her face. David, what are you doing here? Came to see Dad. David's voice was neutral, pleasant. Figured it was time for a visit. You didn't call. Last-minute decision. He turned to me. Dad, Uncle Rich and I were talking. We thought it might be good for you to stay with him for a few weeks, just while you're recovering. Give you and Elizabeth some breathing room, let the brothers spend time together. Elizabeth's grip tightened on her mug. I don't know if that's necessary. Dad's doing fine here. I'm sure he is. But Richard's got that ground floor guest suite, the walk-in shower, all set up for mobility issues. David smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Seems like it'd be easier on everyone. Don't you think, Dad? I nodded, not trusting my voice. Well, if that's what you want. Elizabeth's tone suggested it wasn't what she wanted at all. How long? A few weeks, maybe a month. David was already moving past her into the house. Let me help Dad pack some things. Trevor appeared from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a dish towel. Dave, man, long time. You staying in town? For a while. Working remotely. David's handshake with Trevor was brief, professional. You don't mind if Dad stays with Uncle Rich, do you? Course not. Whatever's best for Ken. 20 minutes later, my clothes were in a duffel bag David had brought. My medications, Charlotte would reorganize those later. The bank statements were still hidden under my mattress. I'd retrieve those another time. Elizabeth stood in the doorway as we loaded the car, arms crossed. Dad, call if you need anything. I will. And David, it's good you're here. Really. But her eyes said something different. As we drove away, I watched the house in the side mirror, my home for 25 years, and wondered if I'd ever live there again. At Richard's house, Charlotte had coffee ready. David dropped his bag and pulled me into another hug, longer this time. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I should have checked on you more. Should have known something was wrong. You couldn't have known. I should have. He pulled back. But I'm here now, and I made calls last night. Found a lawyer, elder law specialist, Gerald Thompson. 30 years experience. He can meet us at 2. Gerald Thompson arrived at 2 p.m. in a silver Lexus, around 50 gray at the Temple's Navy suit. His handshake was warm, his eyes sharp. Mr. Harper, I'm sorry we're meeting under these circumstances. He set his briefcase on Richard's dining room table. David briefed me, but I need to hear everything from you. So I told it again. The ICU, the ventilator, the bank account, Hawaii, every humiliating detail. Gerald took notes, asking precise questions. Did you give Elizabeth permission for those purchases? Were you aware she'd changed your password? When I finished, he set down his pen. Mr. Harper, this is elder financial abuse under California Penal Code 368. With $68,000 stolen, this is grand theft under Penal Code 487. Can we prove it? Richard asked. The hospital should have ICU camera footage. Combined with your testimony and medical staff observations, we have a strong case. Gerald pulled out documents. But right now we protect your remaining assets. He spread papers across the table. First Living Trust. All assets, house, bank balance, life insurance go into the trust. David and Richard as co-trustees. Elizabeth can't touch any of it. How long? End of week if we move quickly. We'll need deeds, insurance policies, bank statements. David made a note. I'll get them from the house tomorrow. Second, changed life insurance beneficiary from Elizabeth to David. I'll contact the insurance company today. Third, all passwords changed. What about the cameras? Charlotte asked. Richard pulled out his phone. 2 hidden cameras. Recording for 3 days. Gerald leaned forward. Anything useful? Richard found the footage from last night. 10:43 p.m. The screen showed Elizabeth and Trevor in the living room. Audio clear. Trevor. We need his signature on a power of attorney. Then we can sell the house. Elizabeth. He won't sign it. He's suspicious. Trevor. Then we forge it. Who's gonna check Monk? Elizabeth. Trevor. Trevor, we're in too deep. The casinos call every day. I owe $35,000. Maybe more. Elizabeth. Jesus Christ. Trevor, the house is worth $500,000. We sell it, pay my debts, we're set. But we need to move fast before your brother shows up. Gerald sat back, exhaling. That's gold. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Intent to forge documents. Admission of motive. He looked at Richard. I need copies of everything the cameras capture. You've got it. Over the next hour, Gerald outlined the strategy. File police report. Request ICU footage through legal channels. Gather all evidence, statements, receipts, camera footage. This takes months, Gerald warned. But with what you've shown me, we can get your money back. Under elder abuse law, Elizabeth could pay double restitution. $136,000. That much. California takes this seriously. Gerald closed his briefcase. Mr. Harper, I need to ask something difficult. Are you prepared to press charges against your daughter? David's hand found mine under the table. I thought about the 7-year-old with the scraped knee, the bride I'd walked down the aisle. Then I thought about the hand on my ventilator tube, the bathroom floor, the Mai Tais in Hawaii. Yes, I said. I'm ready. Gerald nodded. Then we move forward. I'll contact the Sacramento County District Attorney tomorrow. We'll coordinate with law enforcement. He shook my hand. We're going to get you justice. After he left, I sat staring at the papers. Trust documents, police report templates. David squeezed my shoulder. You okay? For the first time since the stroke, I felt like I was fighting back. Yeah, I said. I think I am. 3 days after meeting Gerald, I sat in a small conference room at the Sacramento County Sheriff's Office. Richard on my left, David on my right, Gerald reviewing notes across the table. The walls were beige institutional. A whiteboard behind us still had marker remnants from some previous case. The door opened. A man in his mid-40s walked in, built, solid, graying buzz-cut badge clipped to his belt. He carried a folder and a weathered leather notebook. Mr. Harper. He extended his hand. Detective Michael Hayes, Elder Abuse Unit. I'm sorry we're meeting like this. His handshake was firm, but not aggressive. His eyes, gray-blue, direct, held the kind of steadiness that came from seeing terrible things and still showing up. Gerald made introductions. Detective Hayes has reviewed the preliminary materials, bank statements, camera footage, timeline. Hayes sat down, opened his folder. Mr. Harper, based on what Attorney Thompson provided, this isn't just financial abuse. The incident at Riverside General is attempted homicide. The forged power of attorney discussion on camera identity theft fraud. The systematic account draining grand theft with elder abuse enhancements. My throat tightened. Hearing it laid out clinical legal real made it impossible to pretend otherwise. I need to hear everything from you, Hayes continued. Start with the stroke. So I told it. The ICU conversation. Elizabeth's hand on the tube. The alarms. Dr. Harrison saving me. The account hemorrhaging money. Hawaii. The bathroom floor. Hayes took notes, handwriting small and precise. Did Elizabeth know you could hear her in the ICU? No. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. But you heard everything. Every word. Hayes made a note. That's key. Shows intent premeditation. He looked up. I need a court order to obtain ICU camera footage from Riverside General. Hospital security keeps recordings 90 days before overwriting. We're at day 78. If we move fast, we preserve that evidence. How long for a court order? David asked. 24 to 48 hours with what we have. Hayes closed his notebook. I'm also interviewing Dr. Harrison and Nurse Johnson. They're mandated reporters. They should have filed an incident report. Hayes stood. Give me 4 weeks. I'll build this case so tight there won't be room for doubt. The investigation moved faster than I expected. Within 36 hours, Hayes had the court order. By day 3, he'd reviewed the ICU footage. He called Thursday evening. Mr. Harper, I've seen the video. It's exactly as you described. His voice carried controlled anger. Elizabeth entered your room at 2:37 a.m. Trevor remained in the hallway as lookout. Elizabeth stood beside your bed 43 seconds. Then her hand is clearly visible removing the ventilator tube. Alarms triggered immediately. Dr. Harrison responded within 22 seconds. My hand gripped the phone. Hearing it confirmed should have felt like vindication. Instead, it just felt like loss. What happens now? I interviewed Dr. Harrison and Nurse Johnson. Both remember clearly. Both stated Elizabeth's explanation that the tube came loose didn't match their observations. They're willing to testify. I also pulled the hospital incident report. Nurse Johnson filed it that night. That's contemporaneous record, powerful evidence. After we hung up, I sat in Richard's kitchen staring at my coffee. David found me 20 minutes later. They have the video. It shows everything. David pulled out a chair. Good. That's good, Dad. Is it because now it's real? I looked at him. My daughter tried to stop me from breathing, and now there's video proof. David reached across the table, gripped my hand. Days blurred together. Hayes brought in a forensic accountant, Patricia Brown, mid-30s, sharp-eyed, carrying a laptop and banker's boxes of records. She spread everything across Richard's dining room table. Bank statements, credit card bills, casino transaction logs, Trevor's personal account records. Follow the money, she said, tapping a highlighted line. This transfer, $5,500 from your account to Trevor's on March 15th. 3 days later, Trevor paid Thunder Valley Casino, exact same amount. She flipped pages. April 2nd, $4,500 transfer. April 5th payment to Red Hawk Casino, $4,500. Page after page, she traced it. The BMW down payment, $18,000, came from my account March 28th. The Hawaii trip was charged to my debit card. Mr. Harper Trevor has gambling debts totaling $35,000 across 3 casinos. Confirmed. The casinos placed him on do not extend credit lists. Collection agencies were calling. Patricia looked up. Your money was his lifeline. So he convinced Elizabeth to help him steal from me. That's the prosecution's theory. The evidence supports it. She closed her laptop. Trevor owes $35,000. Your $68,000 would have covered his debts and more. Detective Hayes, standing by the window, turned. That's motive, clear documentable. Combined with ICU footage, witness statements, and hidden camera recordings, we have everything. 2 weeks in, Gerald called. The district attorney wants to meet. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. We gathered in the DA's conference room. Assistant District Attorney Robert Martinez sat across from us, maybe 40 sharp, suit-sharper eyes. He listened while Hayes walked through evidence, watched the ICU footage without expression, reviewed the financial analysis. When it ended, he leaned back. This is one of the clearer elder abuse cases I've seen. Mr. Harper, I'll be direct. Your daughter faces significant charges. If convicted on all counts, she's looking at 15 to 20 years in state prison. Trevor potentially longer, given his role as primary instigator. 15 to 20 years. Elizabeth would be in her 50s when she got out. I understand, I managed. We're proceeding with arrest warrants. Multiple charges: attempted homicide under Penal Code 664/187, grand theft, elder financial abuse under PC 368, identity theft, fraud. Martinez tapped the file. Detective Hayes, how soon can you execute? 48 hours. Do it. The night before the arrest, I couldn't sleep. Kept picturing Elizabeth in handcuffs, Trevor being read his rights. David found me in Richard's kitchen at 2 a.m. Dad. I keep thinking about when she was little, 5 years old maybe. She had this stuffed rabbit, Mr. Hoppy. One night we couldn't find it. She was hysterical. I spent an hour fishing it out from behind the washing machine. When I finally got it, she hugged me like I'd saved the world. David sat beside me. She's not that little girl anymore. I know, but I remember her. And tomorrow police are going to arrest her. Because of me. Because of her choices, Dad. Not because of you. I looked at him. I want to be there. When they arrest her, I need to see it. Are you sure? No, but I need to do it anyway. David nodded slowly. Okay, I'll tell Detective Hayes. The next morning, I would watch my daughter be arrested. For now, I sat in the dark kitchen remembering a 5-year-old with a stuffed rabbit and wondering how we'd gotten here. We left Richard's house at 6:30 in the morning. The sky was still dark, that heavy purple-black that comes just before dawn. David had called the night before to confirm everything was ready. Detective Hayes wanted me there when they made the arrests, not inside, but close enough to be present. A witness to the end of something I'd never imagined could happen in my own family. Richard drove. I sat in the passenger seat of his truck, hands folded in my lap, watching streetlights blur past. Neither of us spoke much. What was there to say? My daughter and her husband were about to be arrested for stealing my life savings and trying to finish what my stroke had started. When we turned onto Birch Lane, I saw them immediately, 3 unmarked vehicles parked along the curb near my house. Dark sedans that screamed law enforcement. Detective Hayes stood beside one, talking into his phone. 2 uniformed officers waited near the front walkway. Richard parked 50 feet down the street, far enough to stay out of the way, but close enough for me to see everything. He cut the engine. The silence felt enormous. You don't have to watch this, Richard said quietly. But I did. After everything they'd done, I needed to see this through. At exactly 7 o'clock, Detective Hayes approached the front door. The uniformed officers flanked him. Hayes knocked 3 sharp raps that echoed down the quiet street. I watched the door. Watched it like my life depended on it. Elizabeth answered. Even from this distance, I could see she was still in her pajamas, pale pink cotton with her hair pulled back. She looked confused, then alarmed as Hayes held up his badge. I couldn't hear what he said, but I saw her face change, saw the exact moment she understood why they were there. Her mouth opened, hands flying up in protest or denial. Hayes said something else. Elizabeth shook her head violently, backing into the house. The officers followed her inside. "Here we go," Richard murmured. 30 seconds later, Trevor appeared in the doorway. I saw him assess the situation, the detective, the uniforms, the vehicles outside. He bolted. He made it 4 steps before 2 officers caught him. They were fast, professional. Trevor went down hard on the front lawn, shouting something I couldn't make out. Within seconds, they had him cuffed, hauling him to his feet. Elizabeth burst out of the house, screaming, "He didn't do anything! You can't—" "Ma'am, you need to calm down," Hayes said loud enough that I heard him clearly. "Elizabeth Harper Morrison, you're under arrest for violations of California Penal Code 368 Elder Financial Abuse and PC 664/187. Trevor Morrison, you're under arrest for the same charges." Elizabeth was crying now as a female officer guided her hands behind her back. The handcuffs clicked into place with a sound that seemed to carry across the entire neighborhood. That's when she saw me. I don't know what made her look down the street, but her eyes found Richard's truck, found me sitting in the passenger seat, watching everything unfold. Our eyes met across those 50 feet of pavement. My daughter. My baby girl who I'd held in the hospital 33 years ago, who I'd taught to ride a bike, who I'd walked down the aisle at her wedding. The woman who'd stolen everything from me and tried to make sure I'd never wake up to discover it. "Dad." Her voice cracked across the morning air. "Dad, please, it was Trevor, he made me, I didn't want to, please." She was being guided toward one of the patrol cars, but she kept twisting back, trying to see me. "Dad, tell them, please, I'm sorry, Dad." I sat perfectly still. Didn't move. Didn't respond. Just watched as they placed her in the back of one car and Trevor in another. Trevor didn't look at me. Didn't say a word. Just stared straight ahead, jaw clenched as the officer closed the door. Elizabeth was still calling for me. Her voice muffled now through the car window. I could see her face pressed against the glass mouth, moving, tears streaming down her cheeks. Richard's hand appeared on my shoulder. "Kenneth." I realized I was crying. Silent tears rolling down my face as I watched the patrol cars pull away from the curb, turn at the end of the street, and disappear. The unmarked vehicles followed. Within 2 minutes, Birch Lane was empty again. Just another quiet residential street in the morning light. "It's done," Richard said softly. I nodded, couldn't speak. Detective Hayes approached Richard's truck. He leaned down to my window. "Mr. Harper, this is just the beginning of the legal process. The DA's office will be in touch about arraignment proceedings. You did the right thing." The right thing. The phrase felt hollow. "Do you want to go inside?" Richard asked after Hayes left. "Well, get some of your things." I looked at my house, the place where I'd lived for 30 years, where I'd raised my daughter, where Catherine and I had built our life together. The house that had become a crime scene. "No," I said. "I can't." I couldn't stand the sight of it. We drove back to Richard's house in silence, the morning sun finally breaking over the horizon, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. Beautiful, indifferent. A new day starting while my old life ended. The arrest was done. But nothing felt finished. Just broken. Something torn open, raw and bleeding. 2 days after the arrest, the arraignment took place at Sacramento Superior Court. Richard drove me downtown through morning traffic. David met us in the parking garage, his expression tight with concern. He'd flown in the night before, insisting he needed to be there. Having both my sons present made what I was about to witness feel slightly more bearable. The courthouse was massive, all concrete and glass security checkpoints and metal detectors. We passed through screening and took the elevator to the 4th floor. Department 12. Judge Patricia Morrison presiding. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. Wood-paneled walls, fluorescent lighting, rows of benches like church pews. David guided me to a seat in the 3rd row. "You okay?" Richard murmured. I nodded, though my hands were shaking. At 9 o'clock sharp, a bailiff emerged. "All rise. Department 12 of the Sacramento County Superior Court is now in session, the Honorable Judge Patricia Morrison presiding." Judge Morrison entered, a woman in her early 60s with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes. "Be seated," the bailiff announced. Then they brought in Elizabeth and Trevor. I wasn't prepared to see my daughter shuffling into the courtroom in an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed in front of her ankles, chained together. Her hair hung limp around her face, unwashed. No makeup. Eyes red and swollen from crying. Trevor walked beside her in matching orange, his expression carefully neutral. But I caught the tension in his jaw, the rigid set of his shoulders. A young public defender in an ill-fitting suit waited at the defense table. The bailiff removed their handcuffs, but remained close, watchful. Elizabeth's eyes swept the courtroom. When they found me sitting between Richard and David, something crumbled in her face. She opened her mouth, but the public defender touched her arm, shook his head. She looked away, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Shut the people versus Elizabeth Harper Morrison and Trevor James Morrison," the clerk announced. Case number CR-2025-04187. Judge Morrison looked up. "Counsel, please state your appearances." A tall black woman in a charcoal suit stood from the prosecution table. "Amanda Reyes for the people, Your Honor." The young public defender rose. "Marcus Webb for both defendants, Your Honor." "Mr. Webb, I assume your clients understand their rights and the charges against them." "Yes, Your Honor," Judge Morrison nodded. "The defendants are charged with violations of California Penal Code Section 368, elder financial abuse, and Penal Code Sections 664 and 187, attempted homicide. Additionally, Penal Code Section 487, grand theft. How do you plead to these charges?" Elizabeth was crying openly now, her whole body shaking. Trevor leaned close to Webb, whispering something. "Not guilty, Your Honor," Webb said. "On all counts for both defendants." Not guilty. As if the evidence didn't exist. As if the hospital footage was fiction. I felt David's hand on my shoulder, steadying. "Noted," Judge Morrison said. "Now, regarding bail." Ms. Reyes, Amanda Reyes, stood, her voice clear and firm. "Your Honor, the people strenuously object to bail. These charges involve systematic financial exploitation of an elderly, vulnerable victim who is the biological father of one defendant. More critically, we have substantial evidence of a deliberate attempt to end the victim's life while he was hospitalized and unable to defend himself." Elizabeth made a sound, half sob, half protest. Reyes continued. "Mr. Morrison has gambling debts totaling approximately $35,000 and has been placed on do not extend credit lists at multiple casinos. This represents substantial flight risk. Additionally, both defendants had access to the victim's home and personal information. Given these charges and the relationship involved, we believe there is genuine risk to Mr. Harper's safety if bail is granted." Judge Morrison turned to Webb. "Your response." Webb stood nervously. "Your Honor, my clients have no prior criminal history. Mrs. Morrison has lived in Sacramento her entire life. Her father is here, her family is here. She has no reason to flee." "Mr. Webb," Judge Morrison interrupted. Are you seriously arguing that $35,000 in gambling debts doesn't constitute motivation or flight risk in a case involving alleged theft of $85,000? Webb faltered. Your Honor, we would request reasonable bail. My clients deserve the opportunity to prepare their defense from outside custody. Judge Morrison was quiet, reviewing the papers before her. The courtroom was silent except for Elizabeth's muffled crying. Bail is denied, the judge finally said. Given the severity of the charges, the relationship between the defendants and the alleged victim, the evidence of financial instability, and the nature of the alleged attempted homicide, I find that both defendants pose a flight risk and potential danger. They will remain in custody pending trial. Elizabeth's crying became audible sobs. She turned in her seat, looking directly at me. Dad, please, please, you have to help me. I can't stay in here, Dad. The bailiff moved forward. Ma'am, you need to face forward. Dad! Her voice was breaking. Please, I'm your daughter. You can't leave me in here. Trevor finally looked at me then, not pleading like Elizabeth, angry. His eyes burned with rage across the courtroom, blame and fury and something darker that made my blood run cold. The bailiff guided them both to their feet. Elizabeth was still crying, still trying to turn and see me. Trevor walked stiffly, that angry stare fixed on me until the side door closed behind them. They were gone. I realized I'd been holding my breath, released it slowly, feeling hollowed out. Outside in the hallway, fluorescent lights hummed overhead. People rushed past, lawyers with briefcases, families waiting, court staff moving between departments. David stopped me near a window overlooking the parking lot. Dad, you okay? I looked at my youngest son, then at Richard standing quietly beside us. My sons, the people who'd stood by me when everything fell apart. Whatever she did, I said quietly, my voice rough with emotion. I still remember the little girl I taught to ride a bike. David's eyes filled with tears. He pulled me into a hug, and Richard joined us, and we just stood there in that courthouse hallway while the world moved around us, remembering, grieving, trying to understand how we'd ended up here. Elizabeth's lawyer wanted to meet with us to discuss a plea deal. The call came 3 weeks after the arraignment. Marcus Webb had been replaced. Elizabeth now had private counsel, a woman named Jennifer Caldwell, who specialized in criminal defense. Someone was paying for her, not me. I wouldn't pay for the defense of someone who'd tried to end my life. We met at Caldwell's office in Midtown Sacramento. David came with me. Richard stayed home. He wanted nothing to do with Elizabeth anymore. Caldwell was in her 50s, well-dressed with sharp competence from decades of courtroom experience. She got straight to business. Mr. Harper, I'll be direct. The evidence against my client is substantial. If this goes to trial, Elizabeth will almost certainly be convicted on all counts. She's looking at 25 to 30 years in state prison. 25 to 30 years. Elizabeth would be in her 60s when she got out. However, Caldwell continued, the district attorney's office has offered a plea agreement. If Elizabeth pleads guilty to attempted voluntary manslaughter and makes full restitution of the stolen funds, they'll recommend 15 years. With good behavior, she could be released in 10. 10 years. Still a lifetime, but not 30. What about Trevor? David asked. Caldwell's expression tightened. Mr. Morrison has rejected the plea deal. He's maintaining his innocence and has hired separate counsel. His strategy appears to be placing full blame on Elizabeth, claiming she acted alone, that he had no knowledge of the financial theft or the hospital incident. Something hot and vicious flared in my chest. That's a lie. Trevor was the one with gambling debts. He manipulated my daughter into this. I believe you, Caldwell said quietly. Elizabeth has confirmed that Trevor initiated the plan. But without her testimony, which she can't provide without incriminating herself further, it's difficult to prove his involvement. I looked at David. His jaw was clenched, anger radiating from him. "What does Elizabeth want?" I asked. "She wants to take the deal, but she won't make that decision without speaking to you first. She's requested a visit." The Sacramento County Main Jail was a fortress of concrete and razor wire. David wanted to come, but I told him no. This conversation needed to happen alone. I passed through security and was led to a visitation room divided by thick plexiglass, phones mounted on the wall, plastic chairs bolted to the floor. I sat down, waited. When they brought Elizabeth in, I barely recognized her. 4 weeks in jail had stripped away everything familiar. Her hair was pulled back severely, no makeup. Orange jumpsuit hanging loose on a frame that had lost weight. Dark circles under haunted eyes. She sat down across from me, picked up the phone. I did the same. For a long moment, we just stared at each other through the barrier. "Hi, Dad." Her voice was small, broken. "Elizabeth. Thank you for coming. I didn't think you would." I didn't respond. She looked down at her hands. "Jennifer told you about the plea deal?" "Yes." "I'm going to take it. 10 years instead of 30. I needed to see you first. To explain." "Explain what? How you stole my money? How you tried to smother me in a hospital bed?" She flinched like I'd struck her. Tears welled in her eyes. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. Trevor said you weren't going to make it anyway, that the stroke was too severe, that you'd be in a vegetative state and it would be cruel to let you suffer like that. So you decided to play God." "No, She was crying now. "We were drowning, Dad. Trevor's gambling debts, the creditors calling every day. He said if we could access your accounts, we could fix everything, and you wouldn't need the money anyway because the medical bills would take it all. You stole $85,000. I know. God, I know. And I can't take it back." She pressed her hand against the plexiglass. "But the hospital thing, Dad, that wasn't the plan. Trevor went there alone that night. I didn't know he was going to try to finish what my stroke started." She sobbed. "I didn't want that. I swear I didn't want that. But you knew about it afterward. You knew what he'd done and you said nothing. You came to my house when I was discharged. You pretended to care for me while planning to steal more. I was scared. Trevor said if I told anyone he'd make sure I went down for everything. That he'd say it was all my idea. I stared at my daughter, this woman who'd once been a little girl with scraped knees and missing teeth who'd climbed into my lap for bedtime stories. Somewhere inside this broken person was that child. But I couldn't see her anymore. "You tried to end my life," I said quietly. "Whether it was your hand or Trevor's, you were part of it. You knew. You stayed silent. I'm so sorry." She was weeping openly now, her whole body shaking. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I know you can't forgive me. I know I don't deserve it. But I need you to know that I'm sorry, that I hate myself for what I did." "But you can't take it back." "No, I can't." I stood up. The phone felt heavy in my hand. "Take the plea deal," I said. "Serve your time. Maybe someday you'll find a way to live with what you've done." "Dad, please." I hung up the phone. Her voice was cut off mid-sentence, but I could see her mouth still moving, tears streaming down her face, hand pressed against the plexiglass, like she could somehow reach through it. I turned and walked away. Behind me, I could hear her crying, muffled but audible even through the thick barrier. The sound followed me down the hallway past security out into the parking lot, where sunlight felt too bright. I couldn't forgive her. Not yet. Maybe not ever. 3 months later, the trial officially began. Elizabeth had rejected the plea deal after Trevor somehow convinced her through monitored jail phone calls. I sat in the courtroom gallery between Richard and David watching the jury file in. 12 strangers who would decide my daughter's fate. They looked ordinary, a mix of ages, races, backgrounds. People pulled from their normal lives to judge the worst moment of mine. Judge Patricia Morrison took her seat. The people of the state of California versus Elizabeth Harper Morrison and Trevor James Morrison. Are both sides ready to proceed? Ready, Your Honor, said Amanda Reyes, the prosecutor. Defense is ready, said Jennifer Caldwell for Elizabeth. Ready, Your Honor, said Trevor's attorney, Robert Garrison, a man with silver hair and an expensive suit. Very well. Ms. Reyes, your opening statement. Amanda Reyes approached the jury box. She was composed, direct, with the bearing of someone who'd prosecuted hundreds of cases. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a case about greed and betrayal. About a daughter and son-in-law who systematically drained the life savings of a vulnerable elderly man recovering from a stroke. $85,000 stolen over 2 months. Money spent on luxury handbags, vacation trips, a BMW, and gambling debts. She paused. But the financial theft isn't the worst of what happened. When Kenneth Harper began to recover, the defendants faced a problem. He would wake up. He would check his accounts. He would discover what they'd done. Reyes's voice dropped lower. So they decided to make sure he never woke up. On February 14th, Trevor Morrison entered the ICU at Riverside General Hospital at 2:47 a.m., and he attempted to disconnect the breathing tube keeping this man alive. Several jurors shifted in their seats. One woman's hand went to her mouth. You'll hear testimony from medical professionals. You'll see bank records documenting every stolen dollar. You'll hear from forensic accountant Patricia Brown. And you'll see hospital security footage showing exactly what Trevor Morrison did in that ICU room. The evidence will show beyond reasonable doubt that both defendants are guilty. Jennifer Caldwell stood next. Ladies and gentlemen, my client is not innocent of taking money from her father's account. She admits that. But she is a victim herself, a victim of psychological manipulation by her husband, Trevor Morrison. A man with severe gambling addiction who accumulated $35,000 in debts and convinced his wife that stealing from her elderly father was the only solution. She walked along the jury box. Elizabeth was raised to trust her husband. When Trevor told her that her father wouldn't survive the stroke, that medical bills would consume his savings anyway, she believed him. She was wrong, terribly, tragically wrong. But her actions came from manipulation, not malice. Caldwell's voice softened. As for the hospital incident, Elizabeth had no knowledge of what Trevor planned. She never agreed to harm her father. Elizabeth made terrible mistakes. But she is not a predator. She is a woman who trusted the wrong man and paid a devastating price. Then Robert Garrison stood for Trevor's defense. His approach was aggressive. The prosecution wants you to believe Trevor Morrison is some criminal mastermind. The truth is simpler. Elizabeth Morrison had exclusive access to her father's accounts. She had power of attorney. She made the transfers. She spent the money. And when her father started to recover, she panicked. He gestured toward Elizabeth. My client had no access to Kenneth Harper's bank accounts. No power of attorney. Every single transaction was executed by Elizabeth Morrison, and the hospital incident. Who's to say Elizabeth didn't ask her husband to go there to do something she couldn't bring herself to do? Several jurors looked at Elizabeth, who was crying silently. Don't let sympathy cloud your judgment. Trevor Morrison is not guilty of these charges. The first witnesses were medical professionals. Dr. Harrison explained my stroke, my treatment, my prognosis. Then Nurse Rachel Johnson took the stand. Can you describe what you saw? Amanda Reyes asked. I entered the room during my rounds at approximately 2:50 a.m. I saw a man standing next to Mr. Harper's bed. He had his hand on the breathing tube. Mr. Harper was exhibiting signs of respiratory distress. His oxygen saturation was dropping. He was making choking sounds. What did you do? I immediately called for help. The man, later identified as Trevor Morrison, backed away quickly. I checked the breathing tube and found it had been partially dislodged. Based on your medical training, what are the consequences of a dislodged breathing tube in a stroke patient? Without intervention, the patient would likely experience respiratory failure within minutes. Several jurors took notes. Then came the moment I'd been dreading. Your Honor, the people would like to present Exhibit 47 security footage from the ICU on the night of February 14th. The lights dimmed. A large screen descended. The video began. Grainy black and white footage showed the ICU corridor. Timestamp 02:47:33. Trevor appeared walking purposefully. He glanced around, checking for witnesses, then entered my room. The camera angle switched to the interior. I could see myself in the bed tubes and wires everywhere, machines beeping. Trevor approached, looked at the monitors, then reached for the breathing tube. I watched myself start to convulse, my body jerking, hands clutching at the sheets. Alarms began to sound silent on the video, but visible in the flashing lights. Trevor stepped back, looking panicked. Seconds later, Nurse Johnson rushed in. The video ended. The lights came back up. The courtroom was absolutely silent. Several jurors looked shaken. One older woman was openly crying. I realized my hands were gripping the bench so hard my knuckles had gone white. David's arm was around my shoulders. Richard sat rigid beside me, jaw clenched. Judge Morrison called a recess. The jury filed out slowly, many casting glances back at the defendant's table where Elizabeth sat with her head in her hands, and Trevor stared straight ahead, expressionless. When we left the courtroom, my legs were shaking. The truth of everything displayed on that screen for strangers to witness felt too brutal, too raw. Richard steadied me as we moved through the hallway. Let's get you home. But home was far away, and the trial was just beginning. We just left that courtroom together. You saw the jury's faces, the silence after that video. If you're still with me, comment 1 below. Note parts of this story are dramatized for impact. If that's not for you, feel free to pause here. On the 4th day of the trial, I stepped up to the witness stand and placed my hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. I settled into the wooden chair looking out at the courtroom. The jury box to my left, Judge Morrison directly ahead, and at the defense table, Elizabeth and Trevor. Elizabeth looked terrified, eyes already red from crying. Trevor's face was blank, unreadable. Amanda Reyes approached. Mr. Harper, can you tell the jury about your relationship with your daughter? I took a breath. I raised Elizabeth after my wife, Catherine, passed away when she was 12. It was just the two of us for a long time. I made sure she had everything she needed. Helped her with homework, taught her to drive, paid for her college. She was my little girl. Would you describe your relationship as close? Yes, very close. Or so I thought. What changed? She got married. Trevor came into her life about 6 years ago. Over the years, she called less, visited less. But I told myself that was normal. Reyes nodded. In January of this year, you suffered a stroke, correct? Yes, a severe ischemic stroke. I was in the ICU for several weeks on a ventilator, unable to move or communicate. Were you aware of what was happening around you? Not most of it. But there was one moment when I heard something I was never supposed to hear. What did you hear? I looked directly at Elizabeth. She was crying silently, hands covering her mouth. I heard my daughter and Trevor talking, planning. They thought I was unconscious, but I could hear them. Elizabeth said something about transferring money. Trevor said they needed to move quickly before I woke up. And then he said maybe it would be easier if I didn't wake up at all. Several jurors leaned forward. The courtroom was completely silent. What did you feel when you heard that? Terror. Complete terror. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't defend myself. I was trapped in my own body listening to them discuss whether I should live or not. Reyes gave me a moment. During your hospitalization, did you give anyone permission to access your bank accounts? No. I had no way to give permission for anything. Did you authorize the withdrawal of $68,000? Absolutely not. Did you authorize purchases including a $7,000 Louis Vuitton handbag, a $10,000 trip to Hawaii, or an $18,000 BMW fool? No. That money was my life savings. Everything I'd worked for over 40 years. Reyes picked up a document. I'm showing you Exhibit 23, your bank statements. What do you see? Systematic withdrawals from my savings account. Large transfers, ATM withdrawals, credit card charges. All made while I was hospitalized and unable to access my accounts. How did that make you feel? Devastated, betrayed, like everything I'd believed about my daughter was a lie. When you returned home, did Elizabeth visit you? Yes. She came regularly. She brought groceries, helped around the house. She acted like a devoted daughter. Did she mention the money? Never. Not once. She looked me in the eye and lied every single day. One final question. Do you still love your daughter? I looked at Elizabeth. She was sobbing openly now, her whole body shaking. For a moment I saw her as she used to be, a little girl with pigtails running across our backyard. A teenager studying at the kitchen table. A young woman in a white dress on her wedding day. I love the daughter I raised, I said quietly. The little girl I taught to ride a bike, the teenager I helped through school, the young woman I walked down the aisle. But I don't know who this person is. I don't recognize her. Elizabeth collapsed forward, head on the defense table, sobbing uncontrollably. Thank you, Mr. Harper, Reyes said. No further questions. Robert Garrison's cross-examination was brief. He tried to suggest I was confused because of the stroke, that my memories were unreliable.
And legacy. It's a story that resonates deeply.
I knew what I
Welcome
heard.
to the show. Tonight
After
we
I stepped
explore
down,
the intricate
there was a
world
brief
of
recess.
father's silent revenge
Then Elizabeth
and what
took the
drives the
stand.
characters involved.
She walked
The
slowly
truth
to the
remains
witness box,
hidden in the
still
silence,
crying, barely able
waiting
to
for the
stand.
right moment to strike.
Under questioning, she
We must be
testified about
patient.
Trevor's gambling addiction,
Welcome back, everyone.
his debts, his
Tonight, we
manipulation.
dive deep into the world of
claimed he'd
father's
convinced
silent
her that
revenge,
I wouldn't
where
survive.
loyalty truly means everything.
Then Amanda Reyes
Dismissive
stood
label.
for cross-examination.
It allowed them to shrink my life into a
Mrs.
neat,
Morrison, did you transfer
non-threatening box.
$68,000
They pictured
from
me
your
in a
father's
drab.
account without
The
his
concept of a
permission?
father's silent revenge is
did,
complex, often
Elizabeth
rooted in
whispered.
societal expectations and
Did you spend
deep-seated emotional conflict.
$7,000 of his money
Welcome
on
back
a
to the
designer
studio.
handbag?
Today we're diving deep into the
Yes.
themes of legacy and retribution.
Did you know your husband
in
entered the
father's silent
ICU
revenge.
and attempted
The
to
evidence
disconnect
suggests
your
this
father's
wasn't a
breathing
random
tube?
act, but a calculated
Elizabeth
move
hesitated.
years in the making. The father knew
I
exactly
found
what he
out
was doing.
afterward.
Welcome back to
And
Father's
did you report
Silent
it to
Revenge.
authorities?
Today we're
No.
diving into the
Why not?
motivations behind the recent
I was
events.
scared. Trevor
In this
said if I
episode of
told
Father's
anyone, he'd
Silent
make sure I
Revenge,
went
we
to
explore
prison,
the motivations
that he'd
behind
say
the
it was all
protagonist's
my idea.
calculated moves and the impact
So
on
you
those
chose
around
to
him.
protect yourself instead of your
The
father.
concept of revenge is as old as time.
Elizabeth broke
But
down
what we
completely.
rarely discuss is the silence
I'm
that
so
accompanies
sorry.
it.
She
Tonight,
sobbed,
welcome
looking
back to the
directly at
studio.
me.
Today we're diving
Dad,
deep
I'm so
into
sorry.
the themes of legacy
I know
and
I can't take it
retribution
back.
in Father's
I know you
Silent
can't
Revenge.
forgive me,
Dismissive
but
label.
I'm sorry.
It allowed them to shrink
I'm
my
so
life into a
sorry.
neat, non-threatening box.
I sat perfectly
They
still,
pictured me in
watching
a
my
drab.
daughter fall apart
Welcome
on
back
a witness
to
stand,
Father's Silent Revenge.
watching her beg for
Today
forgiveness
we're diving
I couldn't
into the
give.
motivations
When
behind the
court
recent
adjourned,
events.
I was exhausted,
Welcome to the show.
emotionally
Tonight we
drained.
explore the intricate world
Hollow.
of Father's silent revenge
Richard and David
and what
flanked me
drives
as we
the
left the
characters
courthouse.
involved.
The
A
media
world
was
built
waiting
on a
outside,
clear code
cameras,
of honor
reporters shouting
and an
questions.
unambiguous chain
We
of
pushed
command,
through them to Richard's
and I
truck.
focused on my work.
Inside, with the doors closed
In this
and the world
episode, we
muffled,
examine the motivations
finally
behind
let
the
myself
characters in
breathe.
Father's Silent Revenge and
It's
how
almost
silence
over,
can be used as a
David
weapon.
said quietly from the back
Took the
seat.
microphone,
Almost over.
and he was an
The
imposing
trial
figure,
would conclude
Yeah.
soon.
a man who
The jury would
radiated a
deliberate.
quiet.
A verdict
Utterly
would be
confused
reached,
by his tone.
but nothing would ever truly
Yes,
be
I know
over.
it's my sister, Sabrina Steele.
The betrayal, the
What are you
pain, the
talking
loss
about?
of the daughter I'd known those things would stay with
Delayed
me
calls
forever.
on a satellite phone, and my voice,
I closed my
a
eyes
ghost
as Richard
from a
drove
world
away
he
from
no
the
longer
courthouse,
understood.
away from the cameras, away from the
Welcome,
place
everyone.
where my family had been
Today we are
dissected for
diving
public
deep
consumption.
into the inspiration
Everything
and
was
themes
ending.
behind Father's Silent
But nothing
Revenge.
felt finished.
And the evidence
sentencing
suggests
day
this wasn't
arrived.
a random act, but a
The
calculated
courtroom
move
was
years
packed,
in the
media
making.
spectators,
The father
victims,
knew
advocates.
exactly what he was doing.
Everyone wanted
Thank
to
you,
witness
man,
the
he said
conclusion
again,
of a
looking
case that
uncomfortable.
had captivated
I
Sacramento
didn't realize
for
you'd be
months.
here. Genevieve
I sat
mentioned her
between
sister
Richard
was a
and
lawyer.
David in the front
Father's
row,
Silent
hands
Revenge
folded in
explores
my
the
lap.
intricate dynamics of
My heart
long-awaited
was
justice.
pounding, but I
It's a
kept my
narrative that
expression
challenges our
neutral.
conventional understanding of morality.
Judge Patricia
Welcome back,
Morrison
everyone.
entered.
Today we're diving
Elizabeth
deep
and
into
Trevor
the
were
themes
brought
of
in, both
legacy
in
and
orange
retribution
jumpsuits,
as
both
depicted
looking
in
diminished.
Father's Silent Revenge.
Elizabeth's
Welcome
eyes
back to
were
the studio.
swollen from crying.
Today we're diving deep into
Trevor
the themes
stared
of
straight
legacy
ahead,
and
jaw
retribution
clenched.
in Father's Silent Revenge.
As the jury reached
Welcome,
a
everyone.
verdict, Judge
Tonight,
Morrison asked,
we look into the
the jury
dramatic
foreman
case
stood.
known as
"We have your
Father's
honor.
Silent Revenge.
Please read the verdicts."
Weakened by morphine
In the case
and
of the
fear,
people versus
he had been
Elizabeth Harper
vulnerable to
Morrison,
Genevieve's
on all
soft,
counts
insistent
attempted voluntary
whispers.
manslaughter,
Welcome, everyone.
elder financial
Today
abuse,
we are
and
diving
grand
deep
theft,
into
we
the
find the
inspiration
defendant
and
guilty.
themes behind Father's Silent
Elizabeth
Revenge.
made a sound, half
And
sob,
she turned her
half
dazzling
gasp.
smile back to him. This is
Jennifer
Robert. He's a real
Caldwell put
soldier, a
steadying
captain.
hand on her arm.
The insult
In the
was
case
delivered
of
with
the
surgical
people
precision.
versus Trevor James
The concept
Morrison,
of a father's
on all
silent
counts,
revenge is complex,
attempted
often
homicide,
rooted
elder
in societal
financial abuse,
expectations
and grand
deep-seated
theft.
emotional
We
conflict.
find the defendant
Father's
guilty.
Silent Revenge is more than
Trevor's
just a title.
face went
It's a
pale,
deep dive into
but he didn't
legacy
move.
and consequence.
Judge
Let's explore
Morrison
what that
turned to the
truly means.
defendants.
In my latest
Elizabeth
work,
Harper
Father's
Morrison,
Silent Revenge, we
you have
explore
been
the
found
intricate
guilty
web
of
of secrets
crimes
that
against
led
your
one
own
man
father,
down a path he
a
never
man who
expected.
raised you, loved
Welcome back
you,
to the
and
studio.
trusted you.
Today we're diving
Your
deep
actions
into the
represent
themes
a
of
profound
legacy and
betrayal.
retribution in Father's
However,
Silent
the court
Revenge.
recognizes that
Thank
you
you,
were
man,
under
he said
significant
again, looking
psychological
uncomfortable.
manipulation
I didn't
and have
realize you'd
shown
be here.
genuine remorse.
Genevieve mentioned her sister
You are
was a
hereby
lawyer.
sentenced to
Welcome
20
back to the
years
studio.
in the
Today we're
California
diving
state
deep
prison
into the
system.
themes of legacy
Additionally,
and
you are
retribution
ordered to pay
in Father's
restitution
Silent
totaling
Revenge.
$136,000,
We're told you also serve our country.
double the amount
On behalf
stolen
of a
under
grateful
California's
nation
elder
and our
abuse
family,
statutes,
thank you for your
plus
service,
court
a polite.
costs.
In this
Elizabeth
exclusive
was
series,
crying
we'll dive
openly,
deep into the
shoulders
motivations and
shaking.
outcomes depicted
Judge
in Father's
Morrison's
Silent
expression
Revenge.
hardened
Stay tuned
as
for
she turned
insights
to
you won't
Trevor.
find anywhere else. The silence itself
Trevor
is the
James
weapon.
Morrison.
When a father
The
seeks
evidence
revenge,
shows that
it's
you were the
rarely
primary
loud,
architect
but
of this
always
scheme.
deliberate.
You
Thank you,
manipulated
ma'am,
your
he said
wife
again,
into
looking
stealing from her
uncomfortable.
elderly father.
I didn't realize you'd be
You
here.
accumulated gambling
Genevieve
debts
mentioned
and
her
saw
sister
Kenneth
was a
Harper's
lawyer.
life savings
Welcome to
as a
Father's Silent
solution.
Revenge. In this series,
When
we
Mr.
explore
Harper
the intricate
began to
details
recover,
behind some of history's
you
most
attempted
compelling
to end
unsolved
his
mysteries
life.
and dramatic events.
You showed
Welcome,
no
everyone.
remorse throughout this
Tonight,
trial.
we look into the
You are hereby
dramatic case
sentenced
known
to
as
30 years in the
Father's
California
Silent
State
Revenge.
prison system, with
We're told
parole
you also
eligibility
serve our
after
country.
25
On
years.
behalf of a grateful nation
You are jointly
and our
liable
family,
for the
thank you for your
restitution
service,
amount
a polite.
of
Welcome back to Father's Silent
$241,600.
Revenge. Today we're
Trevor's
diving
hands
deep
clenched
into the
into fists.
psychology behind the recent
Bailiff,
events.
please remand the defendants
The
into
silence
custody.
itself is the weapon.
As they were led away,
When a father seeks
Elizabeth
revenge,
turned back
it's
one
rarely
last
loud,
time.
but always
Her
deliberate.
eyes found mine across
The concept of a
courtroom.
father's silent revenge
saw
is
pain
complex, often
regret,
rooted in societal
desperation.
expectations and deep-seated
I looked
emotional
away.
conflict.
6
Welcome back,
months
everyone.
later, I stood
Today
on the
we are
balcony of
diving
my new
deep
apartment
into
in
Father's
Davis,
Silent
California,
Revenge revenge,
watching the
analyzing the
sunset
themes of
paint the
justice
sky in
and
shades
legacy.
of orange and
In this
gold.
episode, we
Davis
examine
was
the
a small
motivations
college
behind
town
the
about 20
characters in
miles
Father's
west of
silent revenge,
Sacramento.
and how silence can
Quiet,
be used as a weapon.
peaceful.
Utterly confused
The
by his
apartment was
tone.
modest, one bedroom,
Yes,
small
I know it's
kitchen,
my
large
sister,
windows
Sabrina
that let in
Steele.
natural light.
What are you talking about?
It was nothing like the house Catherine and I
We're
had
told
built
you
together,
also
but it
serve
was
our
mine.
country on behalf
fresh
of a
start.
grateful nation,
The
and our family
restitution
thank
money
you
had
for your
been
service,
paid.
a polite.
I'd
a
received
radiant, magnanimous smile
$136,000
that
plus
clearly said,
another
"See,
$40,000
I
from
am
various
generous,
settlements.
and I acknowledge
I
your
could have
little
kept
life."
it all.
Thank you all for
Could have
joining
rebuilt
us.
my
I'm
retirement.
excited to finally share
But
the
something
details
David had
about
said
Father's
stuck with
silent
me.
revenge. It's going to
Maybe
be an
some
intense
good can
ride.
come from all this
He was
pain.
alone.
That's
Genevieve
how
was
the
holding
Harper
court with a
Foundation for
circle
Elder
of
Financial
admirers.
Abuse
"Ma'am,"
Victims was
he
born.
said.
David helped me set it up, a
My
nonprofit
desk had been in
organization
courtrooms in Baghdad
dedicated to helping
and
elderly
briefing rooms at the
victims of
Pentagon
financial
and
exploitation.
negotiation tables in The
We
Hague.
provided legal assistance,
The concept of a
financial
father's silent
counseling, and
revenge is
emotional
complex,
support.
often rooted in
In 6
societal
months, we'd helped
expectations and
47
deep-seated
families
emotional
across
conflict.
Northern California.
Welcome back to the
People who'd
studio.
been betrayed
Today
by
we're diving
caregivers,
deep
family
into the
members,
themes of
or
legacy
supposed
and
friends.
retribution in
I knew
Father's
exactly how
silent
they felt.
revenge. "Thank
Every
you, ma'am,"
Tuesday
he said
and
again,
Thursday,
looking
I
uncomfortable.
volunteered at the foundation's
I
office.
didn't realize you'd be here.
I met with victims,
Genevieve
listened
mentioned
to
her
their
sister was a
stories,
lawyer.
helped them
She
navigate
turned her
complex
dazzling
legal
smile
and
back to him.
financial systems.
"This is Robert. He's a real
It gave me
soldier, a
purpose.
captain."
It
The
turned my
insult was
pain
delivered with
into
surgical
something
precision.
useful.
Thank you all for joining us.
Richard
I'm
visited every
excited to
Sunday for
finally
dinner.
share the details
David
about
called
Father's
twice a
silent
week
revenge.
and flew in
It's
from
going to be an
Chicago
intense
once a
ride.
month. My
In this
real
episode of
family had
Father's Silent
emerged from the
Revenge,
wreckage.
we explore the motivations
3 weeks
behind the
ago, I
protagonist's
received a
calculated
letter from
moves
prison.
and the impact on those around
Elizabeth's
him.
handwriting on
The
the
truth
envelope.
remains hidden
I'd
in the
stared at it for
silence,
2 days
waiting
before
for the right
opening it.
moment to strike.
She wrote about therapy,
We must be
about
patient.
trying to understand how she'd
Thank you,
let
ma'am,
Trevor
he said
manipulate
again,
her,
looking uncomfortable.
about being
I didn't
sorry,
realize you'd be
truly
here.
deeply sorry,
Genevieve mentioned her sister was
about
a lawyer.
hoping that someday I might forgive her.
"Robert, darling,
I love you,
don't
Dad.
bore my sister with
I
all
never
your
stopped,
tedious
even when I
army
did
talk."
terrible things.
Apple,
I'd
a
read
man
the
who
letter 3
understood duty,
times,
and
cried
Genevieve's
twice,
world was
put
one
it
of
in a
social
drawer.
maneuvering and subtle cruelties,
Forgiveness
and they were
felt
speaking different
impossible.
languages.
The betrayal
She
was
turned
too
her
deep,
dazzling
too
smile
raw.
back to him. "This is Robert.
But
He's
I
a real
also couldn't
soldier, a
forget that
captain."
somewhere inside
The
that
insult
woman
was
in
delivered
prison
with surgical
was the
precision.
little girl I'd raised.
Welcome to Father's Silent Revenge.
Maybe
I'm your
someday.
host, and today
Not
we're
now.
diving deep
Not
into the
soon.
latest strategies.
But maybe someday.
Father's
I
Silent
stood on my
Revenge is more
balcony
than just a
watching the
title.
sun
It's a
dip
deep
below the
dive into
horizon.
legacy and
The
consequence.
air was cool,
Let's explore what
carrying
that
the scent
truly
of
means.
eucalyptus.
Welcome back to
Somewhere in
Father's
the
Silent
distance,
Revenge.
children were laughing.
Today we're diving deep
I'd
into the
lost a daughter,
psychology behind the
lost
recent
my
events.
life savings.
Thank you,
lost my
ma'am, he
home
said
and my
again,
sense of
looking
safety.
uncomfortable. I
I'd
didn't realize
survived.
you'd be here.
I
Genevieve
found my
mentioned her
real
sister was a
family,
lawyer.
Richard David,
In
and
this
the
exclusive
community at the
series, we'll
Harper
dive
Foundation.
deep into the motivations and outcomes
People who
depicted
stood
in
by
Father's
me.
Silent Revenge.
People who
Stay
cared.
tuned for insights you won't find anywhere
Justice
else.
had been served.
My desk had been in courtrooms
20
in
years
Baghdad
for Elizabeth,
and briefing rooms at the
30 for
Pentagon
Trevor.
and negotiation tables in The
But
Hague.
justice was just the beginning
Welcome
of
to the
healing.
premiere episode of
The real
Father's Silent
work,
Revenge.
the forgiveness,
We
the
have a lot to
rebuilding,
unpack
the learning
tonight
to trust
regarding
again.
the case files I've
That
received.
would take much longer. I was 58
Robert,
years
darling,
old,
don't bore
starting
my
over,
sister with all your
building
tedious
something
army
new
talk.
from the ashes.
Exploring
The
the intricate
sunset
web of
faded to
family secrets
twilight.
and long-awaited
Stars
retribution.
began to
This is
appear
Father's
overhead.
Silent Revenge, and this
I
week
turned
we look
and
at the
walked back
consequences
inside.
of silence.
Tomorrow I'd
Utterly
return to the
confused by his
foundation.
tone.
I'd
Yes,
meet with more
I know it's my
families,
sister,
help more
Sabrina
people
Steele.
find their way through the
What are you
darkness
talking
I
about?
knew so well.
Welcome back to the studio.
This was my new
Today
beginning.
we're taking an exclusive
Not
look
the life
at the
I'd
themes
planned,
and
but the
production
life I
behind
had.
Father's Silent Revenge.
And somehow that
the
was
evidence
enough.
suggests
If
this
you're
wasn't
hearing
a
my
random
story,
act, but
let
a
me tell you what
calculated
I've
move
learned from
years in the
losing
making.
everything and
The
finding
father
my
knew
way back.
exactly what he was doing.
Don't be like
a man
me.
who understood duty.
Don't ignore
And
the
Genevieve's
warning
world was
signs
one of
when
social
someone you
maneuvering
love
and subtle
starts pulling
cruelties,
away.
and they were speaking different
Don't
languages.
assume family
Thank you
loyalty
for joining
is
us.
automatic.
We are
It
here
must be
today to
earned and
discuss the
maintained on
intricate
both
details
sides.
of what we call
Don't wait
Father's
until you're
Silent
helpless
Revenge.
to protect yourself
The concept
legally
of revenge
and
is
financially.
complicated, especially
I
when
learned
silence
these
is
lessons
involved.
the hardest way possible.
Welcome to Father's
Here's
Silent
what I know
Revenge.
now.
Welcome to Father's
Trust
Silent
once
Revenge.
broken
I'm
may
your
never
host,
fully
and today
heal,
we're
but
diving
God gave
deep
me strength
into the
when I
latest
had none
strategies.
left. When I lay in that
Utterly
hospital
confused
bed,
by his
unable
tone.
to move or speak,
Yes, I
hearing
know
my
it's my
daughter
sister,
plan my
Sabrina
end,
Steele.
God kept me
What are you
breathing.
talking about?
When I wanted to
In
give
this
up,
episode
to
of Father's
pretend I
Silent
hadn't seen the
Revenge,
bank
we explore the
statements, God
motivations
gave
behind
me
the
the
protagonist's
courage
calculated
to face
moves
the truth.
and the impact on those around him.
And when I stood in
The
that
silence of a
courthouse
father can be his
watching my
most potent
daughter
weapon.
sentenced
This is
to
the premise
20
we explore metaphor in Father's silent revenge.
God reminded
It's about
me
legacy,
that justice
consequence,
and
and quiet
love can
retribution.
exist in
A
the same
silent,
broken
nodding
heart.
statue of assent.
The Harper
Your lifestyle,
Foundation
it's
isn't
so
just about
unstable,
helping other
always moving,
victims of elder
always in
abuse.
dangerous places.
It's about
Thank
transforming
you for joining
pain
us.
into purpose.
We are here today to
God
discuss the
doesn't waste
intricate
our
details
suffering.
of what
He
we
redeems
call
it.
Father's silent
47
revenge.
families helped.
A pittance compared to the
47
value of the
stories
estate.
that didn't end like
And the final
mine could
insult was
have.
the terms, I
I'm
couldn't touch the
58 years
principal
old,
until I was
starting
50.
over in a small
She
apartment
turned her
in Davis,
dazzling smile
California.
back to him. This is
My
Robert.
daughter
He's a
writes
real
me
soldier,
letters
a
from
captain.
prison that I'm not ready
The
to
insult
read.
was delivered with surgical
My
precision.
sons call me twice
Welcome
a
back,
week.
everyone. Today we
The
are
sunset
diving
from my
deep
balcony
into
is
Father's
beautiful.
silent revenge,
Some days
analyzing the
forgiveness
themes of
feels
justice and
impossible.
legacy.
Other
Welcome to the
days
show.
I remember that little
Tonight we
girl with the
explore the
stuffed
intricate
rabbit.
world of Father's
And I
silent
wonder if
revenge
healing might
and
be
what drives the
possible
characters
after all.
involved.
I appreciate you staying with me
Robert,
through
darling,
this difficult journey.
don't bore my sister with all your
If this story
tedious army
resonated with
talk.
you or taught you something valuable,
Welcome to
drop
the premiere
a 2
episode
in
of
the
Father's
comments
Silent
below.
Revenge.
Please
We have a
note
lot
this
to
narrative
unpack tonight
contains
regarding the case
fictionalized
files I've
elements
received.
designed for awareness
The
and
central
education.
theme of Father's Silent
If this
Revenge
content isn't
explores
right for you,
justice
I
and
completely
legacy.
understand. Feel
It's
free
a
to
story that
explore other
resonates
stories
deeply,
that better match what you're
flawless
looking
and
for.
nauseatingly
For those who
expensive.
found value
And
here,
the ballroom of the
subscribing and
city's most
sharing
exclusive
helps
country club
others
was
learn these
bathed in
critical
cream
lessons.
and gold. My
Thank
desk
you
had
for
been in
being part of
courtrooms
this
in
community.
Baghdad,